Call the meeting to order, the Griggs County Commission. Please stand for pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call. John. Here. Dale. Here. Ron. Here. Sean. Here. Troy's here. Okay. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented? The one thing I was asked by one of the Legion members to put that memorial thing on there, and that's the marble memorial up in the corner of the lot, northeast corner of the block here.
Yeah.
And it's not really a Legion memorial. It's a centennial memorial. The one side is just community leaders over the years. John's dad's on there, Don Clark's on there. There's some educators on there, and I mean, so I don't know if we should visit with those guys some more before we do anything, or have them come. There's veterans on the one side, and then the other side is a whole different group of people.
Does somebody want to move it or something?
Well, no, the request that I had was one of the people from the Legion Club stopped, and they were talking amongst themselves about putting in like flagpoles over there or something. And I mean, I don't know if I care even what. It doesn't matter what kind of a memorial it is. The one thing that I would say is, I went over there and looked at it, and the memorial itself needs work.
Does it?
The engraving is really small, so in order to get it to be readable, they painted the background, and the inside of the letters are all painted white, and all that paint's come out of there. So it's really difficult to read. So I don't know if we should do anything. I mean, maybe I should talk to Jim Zimprick and Red again or something. Red Helm is the one that stopped and talked to me. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. So.
Well, we can leave it on there.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
It's been moved by Dale to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Want to review the minutes from the meeting on the 5th. Any additions or corrections to the minutes from the meeting on May 5th?
I move to approve the May 5th minutes as presented and dispense with the reading.
Been moved by Sean to approve the minutes from the May 5th meeting as presented and dispense with the reading. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Look at the bills.
There's just a few that didn't make it until today that we would like you to add. Great American Financial for $121.41. Yep.
140.
That's a monthly. It's the same every month.
One for Kelly for going to her clerk's convention for $203.68. One for Nicole Brendel for $1,152, and one for the clerk's convention for the sleep in for $90.51.
What was the one for Nicola Brendel for?
It's Nicole Brendel. Kelly probably can explain it better, but it's for mental health cases that get sent out of Jamestown. It's a court-appointed attorney case.
Okay.
Cases for a court-appointed attorney.
Oh.
So what happens is they get sent out in Jamestown, and instead of using services out of Griggs County, they use the state's attorney's office down there, and then the person that is doing the mental health case, they have the right to have an attorney, and that's where that bill's from. She's a court-appointed.
She's an attorney.
Oh, okay.
It's attorney fees. What's Normont Equipment? Wayne.
Normont, that's distributes oil.
Oh, that's where you buy your
That's
tar.
to the receiver's back.
Oh, okay. I see. Oh, North Dakota, Montana equipment?
Yep.
Ah. Any other questions on the bills?
Is that the last social services payment, building payment?
No, I think we've got one more. Right.
Yep, there's one more. 18.
I'd move to approve the bills as presented with the addition of the Great American Financial for $121.41, Kelly for $203.68, Nicole $11.52, and the clerk convention for $90.51.
Okay. It's been moved by Sean to approve the bills with the addition of the ones that were added today. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale? Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carried. Wayne?
I'll turn it over to Jake. He's got some contract completions and stuff first.
Yep, we got the final construction documents done for the 4 graveling projects from last year. So I have final construction estimates and then an acceptance letter and reimbursement request for each project. So we'll start with the graveling project on Highway 3 north of Highway 200. That was Knife River's project. The final estimate, which releases all the retainage, is $22,488.23. And I don't know if you guys want to make motions for each one of the projects to accept the final estimates and to accept the projects, or how do you want to handle it? Or do all 4 at the same time? We can go through each one, accept them as I go, or what do you guys want to do?
Is the recommendation the same on all 4 of them?
Yes. Yep.
Then we can do all 4 of them, I guess.
Okay. Okay, so that was Knife River's project. So we got the 3 left for Tom Gilbertson. For the project on Highway 3 south of Sutton, final estimate is $10,128.62. For the Highway 10 project on the east end of the county, the final estimate is $3,900.09. And for the Macville Road, $12,860.30.
Yeah, I'd move to approve the reimbursement request as submitted for those 4 projects.
Been moved by Ron to submit the reimbursement request for those 4 projects and get those closed out. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carried.
Stuff here. So one there, and then right below or beneath that sheet is the estimate.
So we still are sitting on retainage for these.
Yes. Yep. That's how we make sure all the final documents have been submitted.
Right. There's no way to make that process flow more timely.
The way the construction guys do it, they just start with the first projects that were done and go through.
You're talking about your construction guys?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I mean,
And
for a
this
little
year we-
company, that's a long sit.
This year we had a bunch of projects that from 2015 that got finished up last summer. So those ones, they're pretty big projects. It took the guys a while to get through those in January, February, March.
Wanna keep it?
So then Samantha, final estimates, you can keep those. Those are the reimbursement requests. So there's 4 of them there.
There was no cover letter on that one?
There was 2 estimates with one of these letters because they're tied projects. I want all these. So these can just be paid. Perfect. Just like the other estimates we've done. Should have been 4.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
And those are for you as well. Same thing.
Thank you.
thanks, Jake.
Yep. The Decker Bridge, the structural engineer was up there with Wayne a couple weeks ago, so they got that inspected and the report sent in. Tom Gilbertson talked to me this week and he said they plan on starting their graveling project this year on June 19th or June 26th. So we'll get that pre-job done. And the water board, you guys said you wanted to be updated on the water board stuff. They have a meeting next Wednesday, and they're going to decide then if they want to have us design a mitigation plan for the Thompson Bridge drain. The contract that we have set up, or that we would have set up with them, is an hourly contract up to $30,050. So it'll be billed as however much work it takes us to do the work, and that's what they will be billed.
That's got nothing to do with all the money they've already spent.
No, this is for to get the permit through to the Corps.
The 504?
No, 404.
Okay.
It would have been, if there would have been a contract executed like there should have been, it would have been a duty of the engineer. But there was no contract, no scope of work, and it was just done mumbo jumbo, so. No.
Okay.
But under my understanding of this, if it's common practice to engage an engineer that would take it from the starting point to the point of completion. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's how if that's what the clients choose to do, that's how we like to do it that way. It's just cleaner. All the documents are together, and the same people work on the projects. They know what's going on. So.
And then you, just like this, depending on the scope of work that was wanted, you would propose a bid to cover that scope of work.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a binding contract.
Yeah, if all the signing parties signed, yeah. Just like the contracts we do with you guys, I let you know what it's going to cost, and then we sign it, you sign it, and it's me to get the work done.
So in your experience, have these permits with the different entities, are they subjective, or are they more, here's the information you have is required, once we receive the required information, they're issued?
They're very subjective per project. They do require different things on different projects, and even we don't know exactly what they're going to want. It honestly goes back to who is doing the permitting, like the individual, and for some of these, especially the Corps, what entity it is. Some of them do things exactly by the book. Some of them are a little bit looser. So it does change.
But is there always a way to comply with what they want?
They say there is, yes. We've never come across a project that hasn't been able to get permitting, although me and my wetland specialist were just talking about this last week. There's some new people who are in charge of the Corps now, and he was saying they're more by the book, so he could see some projects coming up in the future that may not be able to be permitted.
So how about this project that's already been gone forward, and it has, from what I understand, has received tentative approval, if there is such a thing? Where does this one stand?
This one, basically, from what the water board's told me, and our wetland specialist has talked to the Corps contact, they want to see a mitigation plan, and then most likely, I can't say for certain, they will sign off on the permit and let the project move forward. But these things are never a for sure thing, unless you know you're not impacting any wetlands. Well, then you know it's going to go through. They don't care then. But from what our wetland guy has seen out there and his conversations with the Corps contact, he doesn't think there'll be a problem to permit it once the right documents have been submitted. So.
And to this point, that's what's holding it up, the right documents haven't been submitted?
Yeah, it sounded like the Corps sent a letter to the water board, and they've sent in most of the items that the Corps wanted, but this is the last piece, is what Bob told me.
They're kind of on a tight schedule. It's been going since 2011. So the engineer they originally had hired, what, not that I disagree with KLJ stepping in, of course, but what was the reasoning behind that? Was the original engineer unable to fulfill the?
Why they want to hire us?
Right.
Because it sounds like Renaissance doesn't have a wetland specialist, which is what you need in a case like this. That, I mean, I don't know a lot of the background.
No,
of
but,
this.
no, I get it. But I mean, if the process would have been done properly to start with, they would have known that 6 years ago, and they would have hired an engineering firm that had a wetland specialist, and this project would be water under the bridge right now, so to speak.
The other thing that was neglected. The other thing that was neglected that the engineer refused to do was the assessment of the properties as far as their contribution to the overall project.
Oh, that's, yeah, they haven't.
Yeah, they backed away and wouldn't do that, which is certainly a duty of the engineer. You people would do that, of course.
I honestly, I don't deal with drains. I can't say yes or no whether or not we do that. This is not the first drain project I've really had any involvement in. I can ask.
Yeah,
but-
well, nevertheless, we're dealing with something 6 years after the fact that should have been
Right.
put in place before it started.
So, okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Jake. Anything else, Wayne?
Yeah, before, Jake, I don't know if you heard about County Road 8 going west of Winfred and McKinley.
Well, that's on the agenda next, but the Knife River
But
people aren't here. Are you gonna stick around till they come?
Yep.
Okay. Linda, do you wanna go right away?
Oh, it's fine.
This is Linda Ledbetter from the State Tax Commissioner's Office. I don't know, what's your title?
I'm State Supervisor of Assessment, but no,
Okay.
I will stay within, I'm fine,
No,
I'm here for the day.
No,
so-
the next agenda item, those people aren't here yet, Linda. So, if you wanna, I don't know how much
Unless
time you
Wayne
need.
wants to continue, that's up to you guys.
I mean, we can't really,
I
we
am
can't,
here, I'm, if he has to get back to work, this is my job today, so if he has other obligations.
I'm off today.
they don't, his guys aren't working on Fridays, so. We really can't deal with the Knife River thing until the Knife River people get here, and they're not here.
Okay, that's fine, just
Okay.
volume off here.
And you do this every few years, or what's your,
Allow me to be ready though, please. I don't want to talk to anyone's back, so I'm just going to grab a chair.
that's fine. You make the rounds every few years to the counties, or,
Well, let me start then.
Okay.
Yeah, Linda Ledbetter, for the record, State Supervisor of Assessments, the Office of State Tax Commissioner, where I also serve then as the Director of the Property Tax Division. Essentially, my obligation as the State Supervisor of Assessments is identified in statute, and then also, of course, because I serve at the discretion or the direction of the Tax Commissioner, then I am required to do certain things. As the State Supervisor of Assessments, then I am charged with assisting assessors, with assisting tax directors with the processes that are before them, that are our responsibility. And I understand then at this level for Griggs County, you have then appointed yourselves collectively as the tax director. So my responsibility then in statute is to, assist, oversee, to work with the tax directors, with the county boards of equalization, the local assessors. And one of the concerns that does exist, yes, I do visit and go to counties as needed. I will be in another county on Monday where they have new staff. So I do try to do outreach. I was here earlier, I believe, helping initially with when there was probably no one in the auditor's office with mill levies, with understanding, at least just directing to statute, those sorts of things. Right now, I am here today, though, with a goal, with hoping to try to at least help you being prepared for the June Board of Equalization meeting. Right now, Griggs County is a county that has not submitted a required document for the sales ratio study that allows the State Board of Equalization to be prepared for their August meeting. So essentially today I am here because the tax commissioner had asked me to be out here to provide an opportunity to say that we are here to assist with anything that needs to be done. making sure that you have an understanding of what needs to be done for the County Board of Equalization as you act as tax director, as you're working with assessments, and also as you are working as the County Board of Equalization. So it is more of an outreach to try to provide some assistance with that, to find out where you are with those processes, to see if there are things that we can do from our agency to try to help move this process along, with an understanding that, of course, you're doing it from the chair of a commission seat, which makes it more difficult because you aren't in the office having that opportunity to have the materials that you need at all times. So this is where it started, is as the tax commissioner then, in our meetings being prepared and getting prepared for our August meeting. We have deadlines, and when things are, when there are things that are changing or there are new staff anywhere, we want to make sure that we've made ourselves available to the counties as needed. So that is essentially the point of the visit, and would welcome, some questions or comments. One of the things that we will be working differently a little bit from our property tax division is that understanding that all 5 of you have been appointed as tax commissioner. The communications then that will come from our division will go to all 5 of you. I don't want the idea that communications go from one person to one person, and then we are expecting to have the information relayed the way that it was actually, the way that it was shared. So we will make sure that you'll maybe be bombarded with questions sometimes if someone's asking a lot of questions, but then everybody will be involved since you are all serving in that same role. Do you have a report then on the status of that? I understand that someone from the offices and with assistance with someone on the commission then was working on the status of the sales ratio study.
Yeah, I have been working on it for probably about the last month, because Connie had done it last year, and about a month ago she sent out an email saying she was no longer going to do it this year. I wish she would have sent that out in January, because I was less busy in January, and I've been trying to help my brother in the field quite a bit. But and I've been talking to you. Your last email, was to logging into that North Dakota tap system, and I don't know if we want to get into all these technical details.
Well, I think that's why I'm here, and it's nice. I mean, for my sake and for yours, I would think that rather than my just speaking with one individual, if all 5 of you are hearing the same answer, it's going to be much more beneficial to all of us.
Yeah, but I logged into it, and then you said look in the upper right. And you'll see this choice that says locate something.
No, I want to, yeah. And that, of course, that is an IT division things. I have to do as much as I can with it. But yes, that's when you want to look at the other counties' documents. Is that correct?
My choice wasn't there. It said I want to, and then you said click on look at other counties or something. That wasn't a choice for me.
The counties then were over after you did the I want to. You had to do the search, but I could look at that with you. I did bring the computer.
Because when I clicked, I couldn't see anything. There was like 6 choices, and none of them were to look up previous records. But as far as the progress goes, yeah, I went through. I got the 2016 BX reports from that. I believe Patricia Lawrence, our previous tax director, had done maybe 3 of them, and then the last 9 were by by Connie Eslinger.
So then when you mean the years always get confusing. I want to make certain that you're saying that 2016 sales, correct? Okay, just want because the 2016 BX,
yeah, and it looked like, I kind of went by your form and everything, and it looked like on the residential, I believe we had 23, which isn't too bad, but on commercial, we had 1, one that was acceptable. And so then I asked for the 2015 records, and we had 1 more. So to get up to 30, I'm going to have to go back a long time.
And to explain that process, because you are required to have a maximum or minimum number of sales in order to actually have what we would consider a sampling that would be effective. We'll have the first year, so we'll go back to the 2016, the sales occurring between January 1 and December 31st of 2016. That is your 1 year. And then if you do not, if you do not meet the requirements, then we will allow you to go back 1 additional year. And then again, you have to take all sales. You can't just pick and choose. You're required to take all of those sales. Again, I understand. And then, because I'm just saying, if this were the opportunity, then we would go to that 3rd year. In that 3rd year, because we don't want to go back into a market that could have changed so much, we try not to go back to the 3rd year too much. But what will happen if at the third year you still have not met that? That is when individual counties are required to take a random sampling, generally just having, just picking a property and then doing a more detailed assessment of enough properties that will help you meet your required number.
So it wouldn't be a sale then?
No, you will have to do supplemental assessments. So then that's why someone needs to be certified in order to, the portion of that report that can be done that is just considered administrative, dealing with what you're saying, determining whether they are accurate sales, arm's length transactions, ones that you can count, those can very easily be done by anyone that you've assigned as, someone in your administrative offices. But then someone as an assessor in counties where they don't have their tax director as a certified assessor at the time, then they will have to hire an assessor and they will give random commercial property listings in your county, and then they will go do an individual assessment of that property. And then that property assessment
Based on what?
Based on the, and Ron can attest to this from some of his education, based on any methods that you use for assessing property. For property assessment, we will use the 3 tools. We begin with the cost approach, and then market is also included, and then income and residential property, unless you are dealing with, where there are properties that you have like a 4-plex that's still considered residential, you don't really think of an income approach. But the market is considered a portion of the value, and it has a weight based on how accurate you believe it is that is reflected upon the sales that are happening in there. So that, from a rural region, you can say that you could not base all of your assessments solely on cost. If you're going to build a home in Hannaford and you're going to build this home for $800,000, is it going to sell for that again? So cost cannot be the only factor. So you do have to use a market approach that helps you decide what is happening with those properties out there. Because oftentimes in the rural communities, you could find that your assessments, if based solely on cost, would be higher than they would be if you used a market approach.
Well, yeah, then for example, if we only have 2 sales on commercial,
Yes.
then I could go out to Napa as an example and look at what their assessed value is, and then I primarily use the income approach and capitalize their net income.
Right, then, but for commercial, you do want to make certain you have considered all 3 approaches. You would want to look
Consider all
at,
three.
you're going to want to use all 3, but you do have to very oftentimes, with it being the 3 approaches, you have to find out which ones can be best represented in your area. Because if there are no sales, the market is not going to be a best approach. So if income serves to be the best one, generally as an assessor, what you would try to do is you would try to create a value based on those 3 types of appraisal or of assessment, and then you hopefully come to a very close place with using all 3 of them. But you do have to weight them with an idea of which ones are best. You don't, like I said, if you don't have sales to support those costs, then you're going to look probably at replacement cost, and then you would look at an income approach.
But it's based on me to choose those 28 commercial properties
Yes.
to assess.
Yes, and in
You're
in
not
your
assessing
education,
at that point, you're appraising.
no, you're assessing. It is still an assessment.
Not either.
It's still an assessment. It's still an assessment. But what the assessment then would be doing, if you do not want to start with the assessment that is on the books, you want to do an assessment based on that and then compare it to that book value. So if you are short that amount, that is where it ends up being a difficult time for the timing of it, when you realize you don't have enough sales that you have to try to perform that many assessments or appraisals.
It's going to take me a long time to visit 28 businesses in Binford and Hannaford and Cooperstown. I don't know when I'd get it done, but
And the number of those, the number of sales that you're required to have is based on the number of commercial properties that you report. So maybe that's something we need to look at as well to see if there's been a change in those numbers. Because oftentimes people will just file the same report they've always filed every year. So it is based on the number of commercial properties that are reported for Griggs County. So that is decided.
in all the months for the 2016 VX report, there was maybe 5 or 6 commercial sales. But one of them said, it's on the back, is this acceptable? And somebody signed it and said, no, this is only part of the, there was, and it's between a relative, and somebody threw out 6 of the 7 for whatever reason. And so I'm just figuring I only got 1 left that's acceptable for that year.
Yeah, so that would be one thing I would recommend that we look into, so I'll make that note for, a contact with you, is that you determine the number of commercial properties that still exist in Griggs County, so that the required number of sample that you have for your appraisal or your sales is being considered correctly. We're not talking just sales, we're talking entire amount of commercial property. So when we're looking at a sales ratio, we are trying to get a percentage of your whole residential property, commercial property, whatever that may be. So in a smaller jurisdiction, we are not going to look to Slope County and expect them to have 30 commercial sales, because they would not have even probably 30 commercial properties.
Yeah.
So it's a percentage of your total commercial properties. So if we think that that is a number that we need to look at, then that would be something to be considered.
And is it, the sample size, is it 30 or 10%, whichever
Yeah,
is less?
10% with a maximum of 30.
10%.
Yeah, so we don't require the larger jurisdictions to go higher than 30. So it would be 10% of that, and then to a maximum of 30.
10% of the total commercial.
Total
property.
commercial properties.
Okay.
You're a certified appraiser?
I'm an assessor, yes. for the state.
Certified appraiser?
Assessor. For the state of
Appraiser?
North Dakota.
Not appraiser.
There are different there are appraisal boards and there's assessment boards, and I am an assessor.
And the Century Code says, in any county or city or any part thereof where the number of sales properties is insufficient for making a sales, market, or productivity study, the county director of tax equalization or assessor, as the case may be, in cooperation with the state supervisor of assessments or that person's assistants, shall make appraisals of properties in order to determine the property value.
You're just throwing words around to try to change things, but yes, we are.
I didn't write the Century Code, Linda.
Out of a bureaucrat's mouth. Jeez. Come on.
If we're going to be disrespectful, we can start all over. But
No,
this is, but,
I'm not. I'm just saying, I just read you the Century Code.
and I have the same thing, but
So-
I am just saying that yes, our titles are defined as such. So yes, they are required to do appraisals, assessments. With our
Appraisers in
termination-
North Dakota have certification requirements.
Then at this point, are we going to say that the assessors in the state of North Dakota are required to have too much education? That's what we're hearing oftentimes now too. I don't think that's the case either.
I'm saying if there's one commercial sale in a county that's as sparsely populated as Griggs County, doing nothing is better than going through the expense of all getting appraisals. I hire appraisals because I'm a loan officer. So we're gonna go, number one, appraisers are busy. So it's 3 months probably to get an appraisal. So we should hire somebody to do a few $1,000s worth of appraisals every year in order to satisfy that number, that 30 number. It's senseless to me. And I know you didn't write the Century
Yes,
Code.
and that's what I want to say. I said, so the more that we learn about all of this, but what I am here to say is right now we know that you said that is what is provided in statute. We know what is provided, and I do not get to make the laws. I am just charged with trying to help administer them. So
I
if
get
those
that.
are changes that we want to make, then those are changes that have to come from the local jurisdictions through their legislators. So right now, the reason I am here is because I am charged with making sure that we meet the qualifications and the requirements for the 2017 assessment.
We can't do
So
it.
that is where we are.
We can't do it.
Right.
Then what?
We're operating from the position, you're operating from the position that we have to be in compliance with these laws. Is there relief from this law? We don't have the ability to go out and conscript a tax director. We've advertised for them, we don't have one. We don't have the ability to make people become assessors. You are operating from the assumption that we have these people available and we can comply with these administrative rules. The Century Code isn't quite as distinct as you keep under this rule or this rule. The Century Code, especially for the tax director's duties, are very limited. Very, very limited. It has nothing to do with these reports. It has to do with assisting the assessors. You can read it, it's four paragraphs. So and your duty is to assist. Assist to me indicates that would be at our request. Mandate, dictate would be what I see you doing. Now, what are we to do? Do you want us to inflict financial pain on our taxpayers in order to satisfy a law that shouldn't be in place, which in fact takes money out of our taxpayers' pockets? That's really a tall order here. So you're trying to make it easier for the entity, the government entity, to take money out of our taxpayers' pockets, and you're using taxpayer money in order to facilitate that. Do you wonder why there's a pushback? And then you're not willing to give us some relief. We've tried, we run ads all the time. We can't hire anybody. We want relief from this. We've done more than is necessary, has stepped in as county commissioners to try to move this forward. If we have to spend $500 in order to extract $100 out of the taxpayers, and the $500 we spent was taxpayer money, what was gained? We have to flip this around. Who is the government? It isn't us. It's the people that are paying the taxes, and we're trying to take their money away from them so that we can find new ways to take their money away from them. Don't get it. and you're never and you can say it's a legislature, you can say it's a law, but nevertheless, what are the penalties for not obeying the so-called administrative rule?
First, I would like to address a couple of the portions that you identified with saying that there wasn't anything in here that would define that the tax director was responsible for that. Mm-hmm. As the state supervisor of assessments, the Century Code provides that I may conduct a sales ratio study, and that the county directors of tax equalization or city assessors shall compile a record of sales of property made in the county or city, and in conjunction with the county board of commissioners shall analyze, and these are shall. And
that's an administrative.
I read it.
No, that is statute 570105, state supervisor of assessments, where they shall compile. So the county does have the responsibility of providing that, because we do that. So I'm just addressing that is in statute that says
I'm
the
reading
tax
the duties of the tax director.
Right.
And it's nothing there.
And I wish that we could say that everything that we were going to look for was under one heading of statute. You know that when bills are adopted and when they are approved, that they are not all in the same place, and it would be certainly easier if it always is. But my job will be defined in different places as well, where it says the tax commissioner shall, and with the tax commissioner shall becomes the tax commissioner telling whomever is responsible.
Again, how are you going to mandate that? We don't have a tax
then
director.
I will say, at what point, so you, again, we talk about the decision of the increased education and that being an issue and the cost of that, but we also then have to look to the idea, where does that responsibility lie? Is the total reason that you cannot hire assessors here, is it just because of that education, or is it because of other things that are happening within Griggs County? What is happening that
What's
you
your
have?
implication there?
I'm just asking that we all have to look to ourselves.
No, that was based on what are the other things that might be happening in Griggs County?
You have had since my tenure in my office, you have had 3 tax directors. So I'm saying, so does that paint a picture that makes it difficult for you? I'm just saying we all have to look to ourselves, because I then need to look at the idea of what is happening with the education. Is it to the point that there is something that needs to be addressed? Everybody plays a role in this, as you have just said. Everyone, we're all trying to do this and trying to make this work together. It is, for me, the stand that this is when we talk about whether we are trying to make this cost more for a taxpayer or not. What I think that the goal of the County Board of Equalization and then the State Board of Equalization is that you want to make sure that people are treated fairly. No one's wanting to add additional cost. I am a property owner as well. I don't want to pay taxes any more than anybody else.
Here's the crux of the problem, I think. There's more than one. Number one, in a little county like this, it's not a full-time job. So, it's not a full-time job.
If it is done well, it is a full-time job. There's a lot to do. I mean, with respect to what Mr. Dahl is even doing with the BX reports, there's a lot of information and there's a lot of things happening all the time. Maybe the level of it all.
Okay, let's just sit. Okay, one more time. Now, so you say it's a full-time job, so it's going to cost the county $60,000 to get a person in here to do this, get them educated. And nobody in the township, at the township level, wants to do it anymore because the education requirements are too great, and they're not going to do it for their $200 a year they've been getting since they were 20 years old. Even though 99% of the buildings that get built in the country are ag exempt anyways. So we still have the same, we got populations of 15 to 18 in our townships. So then you're going to hire a full-time tax director. They're going to end up being the assessors because statute mandates that the county do it if the township doesn't do it. So those townships that have $9,500 a year budgets they're gonna spend 1,500 of that assessing property each year instead of plowing snow and putting gravel on their roads. They're not very happy about it. I'm not very happy about it. So that's $30,000 of increased expense for the taxpayers of Griggs County. Plus we have a full-time tax director. There is not enough value in what they do to spend that much money, Linda. That's the problem. Because it doesn't change.
We look at it like
It
a
doesn't
business.
change that much. Nothing's happening here.
Mr. Chairman, what I'm saying, it can be a full-time job. I'm not saying it has to be, but it very clearly can be, and in a situation
So can
where-
anything.
But I'm saying, in a situation where you do not have township assessors, the county of Burley does not have township assessors, never has. It has always been operated through, through their county offices. The intent of the legislature would have to be addressed with them, but I do, we can look at that with those. I was a township assessor prior to being a county auditor. Yes, it was probably $100 a year. It was, you didn't get paid. If you don't get paid, do you do the job that needs to be done? So there, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So
You
I'm
know
just
what's
saying there's
happening in your
there's
township if you live, it's only 6 miles by 6 miles.
But the ag exemption, that has become more complicated. That is not as simple as it used to be to administer. I don't believe that 90% of the residences are out there are eligible for exemption. There's a lot of things that are happening with that is required of the assessor. But like I said, I'm just saying.
But on a
it could
county
be.
by county basis, the counties decide how many, how to assess that. I mean, we don't collect tax returns. We don't do any of that. Never have.
But then that would be what, as the County Board of Equalization, you are charged with equalizing. Should you be giving exemptions to someone who is not eligible and then putting the burden on someone else? That's where I would see it. If I want my
I go
college
back to-
student to get a FAFSA grant because I can prove I am eligible for it, I have to provide the documentation that says I am. And so I'm just saying, with that, if you are going to want to have an exemption, whether it's farm residents, whether it's new and expanding business, whether, whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that those are being given accurately, because otherwise you are placing that burden, because that budget up for the township is still going to be $9,500 a year. So if you are not getting it from property that should be taxed and you're then having to get it from someone else at a higher level, that's what equalization is.
I know what it is.
It
But
is
that-
self-equalized. The person that shouldn't be getting the farm residence exemption is turned in by the people that are getting it. It is self-regulating. You know that just as well as anybody else. If there is a discrepancy out there in what I'm paying for tax and what Ron and the others are paying for tax, and I'm getting a deal on it, it isn't a matter of time before that is made public knowledge and it's corrected. This is a cost-benefit equation. Do we spend $100,000? What benefit does the county get for that $100,000 spent? And I shouldn't say county. What benefit do the taxpayers get for that $100,000 spent? None. Unless there is a benefit, then it shouldn't be done. This has to be run like a business, not like a bureaucracy.
I am not here to dispute that. We know that there are costs in government all the time that are questioned as far as the efficiencies. Again, it is the requirement that we know that is before us to make sure that you are prepared for the County Board of Equalization meeting.
So if we
tax
can't,
directors,
if we can't do this sales study or whatever, you're gonna do it for us.
no, we will not do
I
this.
thought that's what it said.
It said assist, and then we'd like assistance. Or is that word wrong too?
No.
So what does happen in the event we're not able to do it? Not unwilling, unable. We don't have anybody to do it. What's the remedy?
Just waiting for the chairman to see.
It says the state supervisor of assessments may make sales, market, and productivity studies and other studies of property assessments in the counties and cities of the state to properly advise the assessors and directors of tax equalization in the state. Do you guys have the
Because we may,
you have the resources to do it for us?
there are 5 of us.
Okay.
53 counties.
So you
and
don't?
13
No,
regions.
I'm just asking.
That's fine.
Right. Yeah, but with, with the idea of the assistance, we are more than willing to assist, but with the question from Mr. Wakefield regarding what will happen next.
Yep.
The information will be provided to the State Board of Equalization based on where your report is from last year compared to this year without the data that is needed to fill in the holes.
Right.
They will have to make a determination because then they are charged with equalization. If at that point there's a potential that then they would send all 5 of us out here to do a review of the documents and apply an over-the-board increase or decrease or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
That is action I wouldn't know until we were able to review everything to that level.
And that will not be a penalty, that will just be coming in and acting as the situation requires. So you're not, before it's been implied that if we didn't comply with those rules, that our percentage would be raised or to the limit because we didn't comply, whether it was at 90% or 87% or 92%. It was implied that if we didn't comply, that it could possibly be at 100%. That to me was a threat, but now you're saying that no, you're just going to come in and you're going to assist us in the evaluations of something we can't do. You use the analogy that there's only 5 of us. You couldn't do the work because there are only 5 of us. Guess what? There's none of us here, and so can we use the same excuse to not do the work?
He asked me. I said there are 5 of us, and then he said, "Then no, don't." Yeah, no.
Okay, so if you can claim not enough people.
No, if I am charged with doing that, we would be charged with doing that. That is not my decision to make. I work for the tax commissioner.
Right.
I am here today on behalf of the tax commissioner. This was, so I would just like to question the implications. The tolerance levels that are adopted by the State Board of Equalization are the 90 to 100% because statute does provide that commercial and residential assessments for your overall ratio cannot exceed 100.
Right.
So the 90 to 100 then is a tolerance level that is in there to identify that market is not always your best range. So then that is applied there. The implications that you're addressing then is just something I am thinking that is part of what they have adopted over the years through the State Board of Equalization is that if a jurisdiction is not within that level, that if they are not at the level of between 90 to 100, then their goal is to get that jurisdiction to 93. And it has not always happened that way because it will be a case-by-case review of the information. That the goal of getting to 93 is an understanding if all you are going to do is get a jurisdiction's rate to a 90, then you're probably just creating the same issue again for the next year that they're going to be below that. Right. So it is not an implication of any sort of punishment, it is just a management because for any of us we would rather see a gradual increase rather than having 25% in 1 year. So if there is an issue. And when we talk about it as far as it being a punishment, I don't think it is seen as a punishment, but it's a fear as an assessor that if all you ever do is apply a percentage across the board increase or decrease, if something is inequitable, the percentage is just going to make it worse. So if something is too high and you're adding a percentage, it's just going to get higher. So that's why, so if the state board just applies it as a percentage,
right,
that's when it becomes seen as more of an issue for it not being equalized. Because anytime you do that with percentages, when you look at salary increases, if you think there's disparity in salaries and all you do is a percentage increase, the higher ones get a bigger percentage and it just makes that space bigger. So that's the only thing that I would see as being the bigger concern is of having it allowed to be adjusted at the state level because you don't get that chance to look at your individual properties.
If your logic would hold true, then the statement would have been by not turning in the reports, you run the risk of having your percentages raised or lowered, and that was not the directive. You have the possibility of having your percentages raised. That implies a penalty, because if there's only one side to it, and the side to it is to raise it, that is a penalty. If it's two-sided and it could be raised or lowered, then it is exactly as you described. But it isn't, and it wasn't, and that's never been the implication.
But then, Mr. Chairman, if I may, when we address that with assessments, again, assessments are a totally separate tool than your budget. So if we are going to look at agricultural property, there's only the same number of acres in your county as there always will be because we are not making any more. And if the property values just go up and you are just increasing your budget because you now have a higher value just due to a market, is that an honest increase in your budget? And that's where the issues lie, is that if we're going to say that assessment has to be accurate, that's all we are looking toward right now, is to try to ensure that the assessments are accurate. And then
It
the
doesn't matter
budgets.
though, Linda, because
Yeah.
we don't budget mills, we budget dollars.
And that's
If-
appropriate, then you should not, if someone's value goes up and you're budgeting just dollars, then their tax increase shouldn't be a large increase, because they're just going to see that someone else, or because of the changes in the value, the distribution of where that
They'll have
money is
less
paid.
mills,
Yeah.
we'll charge them less mills.
Right, so then,
But the problem is,
this is not a penalty. If your property value
here's the problem,
increases,
here's
it's
the
not a
problem.
penalty
It
if
is,
the mills do not
it
go up.
is. It is a problem. It's not a problem with the county government, because we understand our responsibilities. There's a tremendous amount of the mills that we have no control over, Linda. That's the problem. The state is painting us in a corner with all this 125 mills they're shoving at the schools and all this property tax relief, and then next year when they're out of money even more than they are now, we're going to get whacked on the head. That's what's wrong. Because the library still takes 4 mills, even though in 2008 a mill was worth $8,700. The hospital still takes 10. Everybody takes what they can, and the taxpayers pay the price, but everybody else's budget gets the double. And we are the ones that get blamed for that. We're not doing that. Our budget isn't going up that fast.
And I completely understand that, because I lived your side of the table as long or longer than you have.
I know
And
that.
so what I am saying is that that's the education that needs to go to those individuals, because very clearly, even when the 12% state paid credit was adopted at the state level and everyone was going to have a savings.
Why is this?
But just a second, but as let me explain what I'm saying.
Why is the
There were
state pushing this
individuals-
down our throat?
But
That's what I don't
I'm saying
get.
is that individuals, though, already voted in a school district to have a bond. So then, of course, their property taxes did not go down. So similar to your library, similar to your hospital, individuals in your counties have already voted to approve having those mills.
Linda,
So then
bonds
that's what
have an
happened.
end gate.
But, right, and so do the mill levies for these others if they
No,
have
they
adopted them.
don't.
They're the ones that they've gone beyond any of the original elections. They will have to have a vote every 10 years.
There are a couple of exceptions to that.
Right, absolutely. There always are exceptions.
And one of the exceptions is to the state's benefit, of which the state is not supposed to be levying property tax, but in essence they do. Every time you raise an assessment, you effectively make the 1 mill worth more money that the state, that goes to the state hospital.
And the 1 mill is in Constitution.
And every time you raise, you also raise the garrison diversion, gets more money out of it, and we don't have enough representation in garrison diversion to affect a change to that. So the county citizens are left hanging there. They have 1 vote out of 33. They have no way to change that. So the notion that you're raising assessments does not raise taxes is invalid. And I know it's I know those 2 are small, but they are hardcore and they are there. The other instances is where there are voted on fixed mill levies. There are in some counties, it's not up to 5 mills, it is 5 mills. We have some on the road here. We can't change that. Every time you raise a valuation, you have in effect have levied a tax on the citizens of Griggs County.
Then that is something that has to be addressed as a statewide concern, because property tax are ad valorem. They are based on value. And if your values are not correct, if you do not assess someone, if it's the way it is provided now is based on value. So if I have a $900,000 home and there's a $900,000 home next to me and mine is only valued at $200,000, that's the issue. So I'm just saying that that's where equalization has to come into play. And I still have to say that they are still 2 separate tools. I understand the implications of them, but if the assessment is not correct from the beginning, your taxes are not being allocated appropriately either. So I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying that we can get that through. Like I said, you work with school districts that still have a large impact on your budget, the levy, that's a consolidated levy for all your citizens. But right now, what my goal is, though, is to find out what we can do as far as being prepared for your June Board of Equalization meeting, what we can do to try to make it, get through to this point so that you do have real data, because it is harder. When the State Board of Equalization applies a percentage increase, you will end up finding yourselves in the abatement application field, because if somebody's property was already too high, then they will have an opportunity to file an application for abatement, and then that's just going to add up for you as well. So if we are just to the point of getting to the concern about how many commercial appraisals you have available to supplement, you believe you have enough residential sales, then that's what we want to look at, is to ensure that you have the correct number of commercial properties reported to us so that we know that we're looking for the right number and go from there.
You just said when the State Board of Equalization applies an increase, shouldn't you have said applies an increase for the increase? You implied by us not doing the paperwork here that there was going to be an increase.
If the goal of this whole meeting is to turn everything that someone else tries to say, when I'm trying to help you get to the June equalization meeting, I think you're just trying to pick things apart to make it look like I'm here I'm not here to say I'm going to increase anything. I am here to say that if we're applying an increase, if we're applying a decrease, if we're, the State Board of Equalization is applying a percentage, and over the board, across the board percentage never corrects anything. If there is an issue, it doesn't correct anything.
I really have reservations with the process of getting to that 30 number. That's so subjective by somebody that is not an appraiser.
Well, besides that,
I
she's saying the
know.
state's here to protect the citizens of Griggs County from who? From us? It would be my contention that...
From each other, I think.
Well, I know,
If you're
but
looking
where's
at
the
equalization,
where's the
that's...
first line of defense? It is amongst themselves.
No, I know. I mean, you...
It is coming to
At what
us.
point did I say that, that I said it was trying to protect it? I'm just saying that it's equalization. We're just
It's just
trying to equalize.
equalization,
Yeah,
right.
I'm just trying to equalize.
But isn't that duty at the county level?
The statute provides that it goes from the local to the county to the State Board of Equalization.
To make sure that the counties are equalized amongst themselves,
To equalize.
amongst each other.
Within the county or between the counties?
Between the county is the way I read the statute, is the way that I read it.
Who cares? Well, why does anybody care about that? Because the budget is dollars and the county controls the budget.
I
And the
know.
number of mills is based on the valuation.
I mean,
I don't
we're-
get it. I don't know why the state cares. I don't understand.
But, okay, but if you were the one then, if you were the one whose home was completely overvalued next to the other one and you felt that you were not getting that addressed at your county or your township or what, I would suspect that's maybe how it all started. I am not old enough to have been here to know how
Right.
long that was, but there has always been this nature of someone overseeing and managing something. So I would suspect that from that point I suppose that just developed from that level. And if that is a question as far as how it is assessed amongst or within that jurisdiction or that, absolutely I will have that reviewed with the legal division.
I
and have them-
haven't been around this very long.
No.
And I'm scratching my head. I can't figure it out.
She might be right. I mean, the appeal process out of the township is to the county, and the appeal process out of the county is to the state.
Yeah.
That doesn't imply that then it's supposed to go reverse, and the state is supposed to mandate all the rules and regulations as far as levy and
I mean, that's a
equalization.
process that didn't happen on one day, John.
Right.
It
So
just-
equalization is such a vague term, and how it's defined is real subjective.
Absolutely.
And shouldn't the closer we are to the citizens of this board here, shouldn't this board have more of a say over the citizens being taxed here because we live here? And if there is a problem, if someone has a problem with this board, they have the ability to go over our head and go to the State Board of Equalization to have their property reappraised.
Or they can recall.
Yeah, you can. And then that's looking nicer sometimes. So,
Wasn't that what it was about, John?
I know. So I think it got taken to one step too far. Where yes, you do have the ability to step in and say those county commissioners have been negligent. They've treated this property owner different than this property owner. I don't think it applies to taking the whole thing and pushing us out of the equation and saying, here's how you have to do it.
And like I said, the intent is not to push anybody out of that, but I will then just read from 57-1304. The State Board of Equalization shall equalize the valuation and assessment of property throughout the state.
So
That is what we're acting on. I am not coming here to shove anything down anyone's throat.
I know you didn't write the statute. I'm just trying to understand the goal. Equalization is a lofty goal, not very easy to do.
It's difficult. That's why I say the tax collector's job could probably be 24/7. Yeah.
But it's not worth it money.
Read that again.
That's the problem.
Read that again for us. Read that section again.
The State Board of Equalization shall equalize the valuation and assessment of property throughout the state.
Okay, go ahead and do it. There it is. You've got authority for it. Go ahead and do it. We'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely, that could be a next legislative question. I don't know.
No,
It's just like you, I
It says
serve.
right there.
Right.
Go ahead and do it.
You know, I think, you know, the crux of the
It
problem
is an annual meeting, just like yours, yes.
And the crux of the problem, again, if we're gonna have this many rules to get through this process, then we have to have less counties in the state. Because you can't have economies of scale
Now I know, but
at this level. You just can't.
okay. Well, here's the question. We can't do this. We've been trying to hire somebody. Again, we can't go conscript somebody and put it.
There's one person in Griggs County that's a certified assessor, and he doesn't want to do it.
Right.
I believe Barb is still certified. Is she still?
She lives in Barnes County.
That's right. She lives by the lake.
we're not-
That's right. That's right. Mhm.
And we're not willing to pay any amount of money in order to achieve this. It has to be a reasonable amount of money. So far we haven't been able to find anybody to do this. I believe that the legislative fix is what needs to happen, but that didn't happen. We've been pushing this for a couple of years. The fact that we have to have multi-trained, talented assessors is nonsense to me. The fact that we have to have a tax director that's an assessor is nonsense to me. What are the penalties for not doing it? I mean, we're not saying we're not going to do it. We can't do it. We cannot do it. What's the cure? I mean, you can't say you can't do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. It's something we can't do.
But then you also can't say that the tax director job isn't, and then to say that the education is too much, but you need more education to do it. So I mean, I'm hearing both of those concerns from you as well.
I was
It's
just reading the
But no, but I'm just saying, but
qualifications.
you're saying that the qualifications are too much, and yet we're identifying how, if you are going to be a tax director and if you need to be able to do these appraisals, where Mr. Olson identified that he believes that, boy, you better be an appraiser to be able to do this. So there's a fine line, I think, that the legislature is trying to address too, is like making sure that if there are assessments being placed that ultimately become taxation, there has to be qualifications that are met to make sure that they are being done
My point
appropriately.
was, in the end,
But yes,
with
but his-
all of these qualification requirements, it's not worth the cost.
Yeah.
The value to the taxpayers in Griggs County to make sure that my house is taxed enough because I'm not a farmer is not great enough to warrant the expense. That's what I'm saying.
And I would disagree with that to a level of saying.
Show
that-
me the
No,
equation.
and I can do, we can go back, and I will try to do math, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying in the policy standpoint from it, the way I would see that it does make a difference is not that you're going to get more money from it, but you are going to have that idea that the appropriate taxes are being applied to those appropriate buildings, to those structures, to the values of the property. I'm not
I
saying
think the
that you're
people
going
that
to maybe get a
live,
cash turnaround.
I think the people that live within the township they are qualified to make that decision.
And we address every complaint that comes up in the form of an abatement. We get an abatement, we look at it. If the township has okayed it, we look at it, we say, yep, there is tax equalization right there. We grant the abatements. We deal with any problems that come up. We don't need the state coming in and causing us more problems. And that's exactly what's going on here. I don't think that you're ever going to get the public to agree that it would be better off letting the state run their property tax division than letting people that they live with every day run it. And I don't think there's any complaint with the citizens of Griggs County that it's being run inequitably. And therein begs the question, why does the state care about this?
Well, I will speak to that since he did bring it up. I do
Yeah.
have letters of complaint, and I have received several phone calls from the city of Cooperstown on concerns about issues with what have been done with their assessments through the county director or the county director as it exists.
We don't assess property in Cooperstown.
Right. But you will have to equalize there. So there, there must have been some question with that. But yes, I do have.
Wait a minute.
Some
Well,
concerns.
I want to see that. I want to see the complaint, Jen. I don't want you to just come and
No.
make a vague comment and then back away from it. We do not assess property in Cooperstown, and we have not had nothing come before us. Don't come in here and claim something without backing it up.
I'm just saying that you brought that to the table today, say that there were no concerns. There have been some concerns, is all I'm saying to you, but because if I do not have them in from people who are willing to, I have a letter that was unsigned, I will not address a letter that is unsigned. So then so I'm just saying, so you know that there are always going to be people who are going to express concerns. I am not throwing stones at anyone. I am saying that there's always going to be someone who complains because it is property tax by nature. There's going to be.
But you got to know that the assessments in the city of Cooperstown are arm's length from us.
We don't have any control over that.
As the tax director, yes, you do, because that city, it is a city that is not a population of 5,000 or greater. That the assessment, when it comes to you at the county director of tax equalization, it is your responsibility to review them and to ensure that they have been equalized, yes.
But we haven't been presented with any complaints. How can we review something we don't know about?
And that's, yeah, so you will
So
know if
the
it's
city
a county
assessor
board.
the city assessor should have presented us with the alleged complaints they have, and we have not been presented with those.
Yeah,
So how do we address something we don't know about?
And so, yeah, and if you don't have any at your county board of equalization, again, that's just trying to be prepared for that county board of equalization. That is just the intent, to be prepared for that. So is there a direction you want to go with this, Mr. Dahl? I understand you are the one who is working with that. We have concerns about the format, which exists only as a link. We have the link to our website. It is not a form. It is not available in a form sort of worksheet. It is a format that is attached to a link because from our agency, we do not provide a form because if that form changes tomorrow, if you're using a PDF of a document that was generated the day before, we always provide links to make sure that everyone's receiving the most accurate information. So that format is available to you, and that's what you have been able to work with to achieve the requirements for the report. And you said you have that portion of it available, or?
Well, I still couldn't, when I logged into NDTAP, I still couldn't find.
To review other counties, but
Yeah.
you were able to complete yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the big problem there again is that there's only 2 commercial sales.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'm qualified to go around to 28 different properties and appraise them, but.
And then that will be something, if in the lack of the sales information, that will be presented to the State Board of Equalization to identify that there are not enough sales to identify what the market is. There is no way to have those appraisals completed. Let the State Board of Equalization make that ruling.
What's the 30? It's based on the number of total commercial properties in the county. What's the percentage?
10%. We said it's 10%.
Or 30, whichever is.
10% or 30.
Yeah, or
10%
30.
or 30.
Oh, so
Yeah, so you don't have to go above 30. So in a larger jurisdiction, if they have more sales, they just have to.
do we have 300 commercial properties in Griggs County?
And say, that's what I'm saying. So I want to make sure that we review with you the number that there are.
About 300 probably.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah. So
I suppose.
So we want to make sure that that's accurate. That's what we addressed from the very early point of the meeting, is making sure that it's the appropriate sample size.
One last time, if we can't do this, what's the penalty? I mean, because we can't do, I'm not even sure whether we can be the tax director. We've just assumed it because there was no one here. So if we can't do this, and the laws are such that, and we can't go, I mean, maybe we can get the district judge to next time sentence somebody to be the tax director next time there's a criminal trial. I don't know.
Or the state supervisor of assessments, yeah. Maybe.
So that's basically what's happened. That's basically what's happened to us here. We've been sentenced with it. So
it isn't a very appealing job. That's what I'm just trying to
so
say.
what
to you,
are the penalties if we can't comply?
Because it is the State Board of Equalization that is comprised of elected officials, they will make the decision. But the opportunities would be that they would send the members of a property tax division here to review it. It will be at the State Board of Equalization. What will happen is that, I believe you attended the meeting last year, did you not? Each county and each large city has an opportunity to be heard. So the reason for the issues can be presented. They do not every year require them to make adjustments. If someone says the reason why this is happening, they will say, then we'll give you this year to correct it, or they will say, it's been going on for long enough, we'll look at these numbers and we'll make a decision in September. So we just have to make sure if you are going to look to saying that you cannot complete it, you have enough information to share with the State Board of Equalization to allow them to make a decision on whether there needs to be a change or that it just allows you to move forward to the next year. It's always done on a case-by-case basis. If you've ever sat through them, they begin at 9 o'clock in the morning and we go through 2 o'clock in the afternoon of testimony. And so it's just going to have to be that you have enough information that identifies why, and they will take it on, they will take that into consideration and they will make their ruling, within that next 6 weeks.
So I'm ignorant, but who's on that board, Linda?
It is it is by statute, it is the governor, the state tax commissioner, the state auditor, the state ag commissioner, and the state treasurer.
I see.
So is the information enough that the legislature has put into effect a set of rules that we can't comply with, and that we don't have a tax director and we don't have assessors? And can you assure me that when the state does come in here, they come in and they're non-punitive in their assessments, or is this a punitive move where it will penalize us for not being able to meet requirements that no one wanted? Doesn't fit a small community like this, but we're still forced with extracting money out of the people that are our Griggs County in order to comply with a rule that I'm sure they don't want.
And of course, no one, even any of those members of that board, if they were sitting here with you today, could assure you that there would be what you're calling punitive, that there would be no increases applied. What I am saying, that the information that you just spoke of, addressing the idea that the reason you didn't comply, that is something that you'll be able to share. But I think you still need to be able to share numbers that were last year and numbers that are this year. Because ultimately you do know that with the agricultural land assessment, that is based on a formula from NDSU, and that has to be applied. I would hope that you would be able to make that, look at that to see where you are with that information. For the residential and commercial, if you have the assessments that are exactly the same as last year, and there is no reason to see a lot of changes, with the following your June equalization meeting, by June 30th, you are required to provide to us what is considered the abstract of assessments, which is then a total of all of your assessments based on each township's total, each city's total, and then your county's grand total, which then would give us a total for your residential and commercial property. And the other document that is required to be filed at that time is called the supplementary abstract, and that's the abstract that identifies the changes that happened. So if there was a brand new home built, or if there was a business that was, or a building that was totally removed, those are allowed to be in there to say that that's why the number is different and you're still okay. So we would want to make sure that we have those numbers available so that you have last year's numbers, this year's numbers, and any of those changes. And then from there, if that median cannot be determined, then we will have to look to see what happens with that.
So those numbers are all derived from offices outside of the tax director's office, is that correct? Those numbers come from the clerk, or from the recorder, from the auditor, and the treasurer?
The tax director should be provided the assessment books sometime after February 1st of each year.
Mm-hmm.
The auditor has them based on the close of that previous year. If there are any splits and parcel descriptions, so if someone, divides a quarter in half, then, they have those identified, and then the values have to be adjusted by the assessor then after February 1. So there would be an assessment listing that's 2017 that would be considered unapproved because it has not gone through the process at the county board. So you would have that opportunity to approve all of those assessments as they exist in the book right now. As far as assessments for this year, did you have assessors? Did anyone do the assessments at the township levels or the smaller city level? So you have new values in your system. Those would be input.
Yeah, the assessment books are coming back in, right?
Okay. And then someone should be making those changes from those assessment books with, I would suspect, your taxation computer program. So you would have those numbers in there. So you'd have last year's report and the 2017 report, and then that listing of what the changes may have been. So if after last year's valuation you were deemed to be in compliance or in the tolerance level of the 90 to 100% of those three classes of property, if we see that we have that information from the new year, the information from those sales, and if you're residential, if you have enough for residential, we'll be able to make that determination on your residential. If commercial is the issue, that's something that happens across the state. You are not alone with having a hard time making the commercial sales, because in smaller communities, if you are fortunate enough to still have commercial properties, those are generally going to stay if they are, they're going to remain in the ownership of the individual that's operating them now. So there are not a lot of commercial sales. Even in the larger jurisdictions, commercial sales are tougher for them to master. But if residential can be obtained, I think we want to try to work toward that.
So we can't use the argument for most of the information that needs to be given to the state. We can't use the argument we don't have a tax director, because actually that information that has to be supplied isn't the job of the tax director. So we can only use the argument that we are negligent in deficient in a few of these items because we don't have a tax director. A lot of the information you're requiring is generated in the recorder's office, the auditor's office, and the treasurer's office. It might be compiled by the tax director, but it is generated in those three offices.
The county recorder would receive the deeds,
Yeah.
so then they would have the deed documentation. Generally, the county auditor's office would be required, the office required with making the splits or defining the parcel numbers and those sorts of things.
Yep.
But when those books are returned from the assessors, the tax director would be the one generally to put that information into the taxation program.
Yeah, but
And
that's it. All the rest of the sales analysis, all that's generated outside the tax director's office.
But the analysis has to be made by the tax director. The
That's fine.
recorder is receiving the deeds, but the recorder at that point would sign off on, because the recorder by law has to ensure that those deeds contain certain information, and that's what they verify. And what they do from that point is provide to the tax director, here's a sale. Then the tax director has to analyze that and say, is this a good sale? Was it between father and son? Was it the settlement of an estate? Was, any of those things would make it, if there was a large amount of personal property that was in the sale price. Those sorts of things are taken into consideration. So that is what the tax director analyzes. But then again, as those assessment books are returned by those assessors, those are included, and the tax director would be the one to do that review of those, because then as the tax director, as you said, with the city of Cooperstown, in seeing those changes is going to want to be able to validate those changes, because that's that extra set of eyes that's reviewing what's happening in that small jurisdiction. So then those changes for the supplementary abstract then would also come from the tax director. Those are the documents that are signed by the tax director. I think the auditor also has the authority to sign those.
Yeah. The point of origin for all this information is not the tax director. The point of origin is the other offices.
But the point of
It has to be, because there wasn't always tax directors.
Right, but the point of completion is going to be the tax director when
That's
the tax
fine.
director shares.
Can
that
be, but it was
information with-
done before there was a tax
Oh, I'm
director.
sure. But as long as I've been around, there's been a tax director.
So then it's not out of hand to say that being that is the point of origin, that those documents that are required of the tax director should be delivered to the county commission by those three offices.
I won't address a legal question like that, but I would suspect that would be acceptable. I mean, if that is where your tax director is,
Tax director's not an elected official.
that's what I mean, yeah.
They serve at the behest of the
Right.
Yeah,
commission.
but that's what I'm
So-
saying, so yeah, so
Yeah.
if that's where you're going to say that, but I'm just, because he had said earlier that he wasn't sure if it was legal for you to be the tax director, so I'm just
We
saying.
still
I'm
don't
not-
know that.
Sure, yes.
And that's what I'm saying, so when he's asking me that question, I am making certain you
Okay.
understand that I am not saying, yes, I believe that's, but yes, I think it would be
Okay, if-
acceptable for the work to be here, yes.
If it is proper for us to be the tax director, and this information has to get from the point of origin to the tax director, is it then acceptable for the tax director to require the offices to supply that information?
I believe that those would be statutory requirements of those specific positions. So the recorder would be required to provide those documents through that format to the tax director. I believe the county auditor, I'm trying to think of the statute, I'm a few years removed from that, but the statute does require the county auditor to provide the assessment books to the assessor by that first or second week of February or something like that, yeah. So the auditor does provide the original, yeah, and then the work in progress continues after that.
Yeah. So then the only question is whether or not the county commission has the authority, and I certainly don't have the long-term authority to be the tax director, but an interim authority would be based on what my way of looking at it is, the tax director works at the pleasure of the county commission. So in essence, the tax director and the county commission are one and the same. The tax director doesn't have to have the authority to go step outside the bounds of what the county commission deems reasonable, because they work at their pleasure. If they do, they're fired. So I would think that under these circumstances, the county commission, acting as a tax director, should be able to direct the offices within the county to provide them with the information that's needed in order to perform equalization. Is that a reasonable statement?
If you are acting on that, that information should be made available to whomever is doing that. I think the only question had been when they talk about whether you were or were not eligible, and this just goes back to my old hat, is that, you are not eligible to appoint yourself to a position you are eligible to appoint. That was where the question, I think, would, when you'd hear it for this. But that's something I said for me. From
Somebody would have to sue us to find that out.
Right.
Or hopefully fire us.
Or they could recall us.
I mean, it's the last, if it isn't us, who is it?
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So I think that is where the question lies, and that's what I'm saying. From my prior position, I don't deal with those sorts of things in this, but
Right.
As a former county auditor, those were your concerns when you were trying to make an appointment. As a commissioner, could you appoint yourself to a seat? You had to know if statutorily they had a position or a requirement that said there must be a commissioner on this board. Those were things we had to consider. So,
Could we appoint you?
expecting that information to be provided to the tax director, yes, but expecting them to do the analysis for you, that would be something you'd have to deal with at the local level.
Yeah.
I was asked to take the ag land test for somebody last week, so I guess I don't know.
No, I mean, could we appoint the state?
Boy, I don't know. I guess the requirements that have to be met to be the tax director. Yeah, like I said, and where that is going into the future, you have a representative here. I guess we'd have to find out if he has any. I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't, like I said, even trying to speak for the state. Yeah. But speaking for the State Board of Equalization, again, just like you as a commission, you couldn't think you are going to come into this meeting today and know what you're going to do, and yet you start talking about a different decision will be made. So I would not speak for the state board to try to say what their resolution to anything would be. But they do very clearly review things on a case-by-case basis. Last year, we had 48 appeals to review, and so this could be one of them.
That's it.
That's it?
That's a lot.
Yeah, 19 of them were, 15 of them were apartment complexes in the city of Dickinson and Williston. Do you know how long? Yeah, we had 4 weeks to complete appraisals on all of those properties. So.
When was the last time there was a property in Griggs County appealed to the board?
I would have to look. I don't know. We've had some agricultural assessment appeals over time, but I don't know if I can recall Griggs County specifically. I think we had some Griggs County tolerance concerns maybe a year or two ago, but I don't know if we had a specific appeal to us. I don't know that. And those, to be understood too, those very clearly, in order for someone to appeal to the State Board of Equalization, they have to have proven that they have appealed at the local and the county level first. So then oftentimes by the time they do reach out to us because they didn't appeal at the local level, I'm not saying any from Griggs County, but it does prohibit someone from appealing because they have to prove that they did go through the appropriate channels, because the State Board of Equalization, they're just like you would be for a township or a city. Their approach would be that you would certainly want the information and those things to be handled locally where people know more about them. So.
And we know about the tolerance issues because we're the ones that created them. We didn't raise the egg property like the bureaucrats in Fargo wanted us to. So the state forced us to.
And it wasn't intended as a loaded question, but I guess it actually was, because we haven't denied anybody's appeal. So it's been 4 years for certain since the state has had an appeal from Griggs County.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like I said, and right now I believe, for the state board, right now it is a lot to the western part of the state where the commercial properties where there was a lot of construction that happened during the boom. And
I'm sure they're all devaluing.
So, yeah. So, and then when you ride it slowly up, it's not as hard to be at the top for a little while, but when you build at the top, and then you get hit with that high level when everything is declining. So, so I'm sure we'll have a lot of those again, but it was a lot of appeals last year. It's gone up every year, but I think the more education that's out there for individuals too makes them understand, and so we probably will continue to get more appeals as time goes on, whether it's from here or anywhere else. That's the nature of the whole process.
Yeah, I can't see much happening in this jurisdiction because it's static, virtually.
Well, again, it's been a policy of the board that anything that comes before us,
we take the recommendation.
We've taken the recommendation.
Right.
So, again, I don't think we're abusing the citizens of Griggs County. Thusly, I don't think we need the oversight of the state to make sure that we're not abusing them.
And again, I am not here with a heavy hand or a big thumb. I am here as a statutory obligation for my position to be prepared for my state board of equalization in August. And if I am not proactive,
You're not our problem, he is over there.
if I'm not proactive and prepared for the State Board of Equalization, then there's more issues for you in the fall to try to answer to your constituents. If the state, with the change in notice of increase, if there's an increase that is provided at the State Board of Equalization level, it goes back to the county to send the notices. We don't send them. So if anything can be handled locally, that is ultimately the goal. So yes, I am not here with a heavy hand. I am here to offer assistance from the tax department, from the recommendation and the direction of the tax commissioner. It is what I try to do because my goal has never been to create issues, but to learn from them. Because if none of us are willing to learn, we're not going to change things. We can't all be followers. We have to learn, but you have to know enough about things before you can try to change them. So that's why I have to hear from counties like Griggs County and other counties to understand what's happening before we can even look at what's happening out there to try to propose any changes. We are an agency that just is charged with administration.
You did qualify one question that we've had for a long time on the responsibility of the tax director and what the tax director can demand of the other departments, and that makes things a lot easier. If the tax director, us as a tax director, can require the departments to supply us with the information needed to complete these reports, that's a big step in the right direction here.
And I think that those are just essentially in the idea of where the documents would come from. Not every responsibility that every one of us does on every daily basis is going to be in statute. But the idea that a sales ratio is completed by having deeds, you have to know that that first transaction comes from the recorder's office.
Yep. Point of origin.
Okay.
We still don't have the people to do it, so I think we're at a
Yeah, I would just like to
standstill.
I would just like to recap where I'm going to go from here from this meeting is an idea of that working with Mr. Dahl to determine the total number of commercial properties to see if we believe that's accurate. Looking at the idea of how we'll be able to provide the supplementary abstract and the assessment abstract, and that would be with the assistance of the county auditor's office, because that will be part of that reporting mechanism there, making certain that those assessments that are coming in from those local jurisdictions are being somehow included in your taxation program. And then looking again to the idea of your residential to see if you do have information from those BX, that's a form, it used to be the sales ratio information that will be able to give us a median for your sales. And then just in response to Mr. Dahl trying to review information from the other counties, I will make certain I can give you screenshot pictures. I was just in that program at the time when you requested it, and I just did kind of a click, 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 but I can send you screenshots of what those properties or what should look like so you can review the other counties' documents. So does that seem like we are where we need to be, at least to work forward towards your June hearing date?
I think so.
So again, like I said, equalization is, even though it does have the implication of your taxation, we still have to work them separately. They do at the end have that result, the property tax statement, but right now we're addressing and being prepared for June.
Good.
Put more work on your shoulders.
Do you have any questions, Sam?
No.
Anybody else have any questions for Linda? Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming out, Linda.
It's easy, I know the road.
I bet you do.
I do.
Well, I think we should probably take a 10-minute break. I'll make a motion to take a 10-minute break.
It's been moved and seconded that we take a 10-minute recess. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Call the meeting back to order, please. Next thing on the agenda is May River.
My name is Jeff Bendel with Knife River, and I appreciate your time, and I don't want to waste a lot of it for you guys. I know you have other things to take care of, but came here mainly because we wanted to make you guys are aware that we had a problem where we moved onto a road that there's a miscommunication between our dispatchers and our truckers, and completely our fault, nobody's fault at all. We just didn't do what we needed to do. I came here mainly to let you guys know like how important it is. We want a relationship with you guys. We really do. We don't want to try to make things bad or do the wrong thing. We really want to do things right because we need you counties. We absolutely need the counties to be able to get into the resources that are available because they're such a limited resource anymore. And I feel terrible, and it was worth my time, and I hope it's worth your time for me to come out here and formally apologize for one, and to try to hopefully create a better relationship and get to meet Sheriff Hook and Mr. Hoyne and then you guys as well too. And I guess what happened, if you guys aren't, I'm sure you guys are aware, we drove on the County Road 9 and overweight, and like I said, I guess from there, wanted to talk with you for one thing about having a relationship going forward. And I understand there was a huge fine. Like I said, a $20,000 fine is a huge dollar amount for anybody. It's a huge fine for us, and I don't know if there's any flexibility. If there's not, I understand. I mean, I guess I do that if there's not, but respectfully request if there was any possibility of that. And then also to talk if there's any other possible, we are in that location there. If you guys would be interested in us making you some fast material or some road wrap or something, if there's anything that we could do like that could help offset, and just ideas we're open to. And then, like I said, also just to formally apologize. And to hope it doesn't happen again. And we tried to do the right thing here this time, and we actually changed some things in our office actually too about how we started calling all the counties. Some counties don't. When you're going to go to Ohio Road, they don't really do anything. They just say, just fix it up, and that's what we planned on doing. It was a really bad mess that day. Before we had a chance to get a blade back down there, it was a disaster. And when we moved stuff in here this week, we actually just brought our blade down there with us. And after restrictions were lifted, and we kept it there for a few days to make sure that we got it touched up. And I think after we left, we left it for 3 days to make sure there was no issues. And we left just last night. It just left. So I guess that's where I'm at. And I guess respectfully, any questions you might have for me or any comments, I guess.
I guess I hadn't thought about any other in-kind payments. I guess I wouldn't be able to answer to that myself today without talking to Wayne first.
I don't expect an answer today. It was just some options to throw out there to you guys to say, and to make sure that you know we're not ignoring the situation of what's here, but to give you guys a chance to think about it, and then just have to discuss it privately a little bit too, without me sitting here and then figure out what the right option is to do. So I understand that.
Well, we can't discuss it privately. This
Well,
thing
yeah, I understand.
The thing comes after us every time we
meeting.
do that.
I understand that.
Attorney General.
Yeah, I'm on a commission on a city council in New York,
So in my way of thinking, this is kind of like if I steal a car and do damage to the car, there would be the criminal penalty for stealing the car, and then there would be restitution for the damage to the car. I don't think this is any different. I don't think you could combine the fine with fixing the road, fixing the damage.
Nope.
It would be understandable if you hadn't got permits to get right to Griggs County, and so you can't plead ignorance. You knew there was road, so it looks to me, and it would look to anybody from the outside, as if you just disregarded Griggs County and said, well, we'll sneak on there. They won't know the difference. Weather conditions combine to get you caught.
Yeah. No, and I can't even argue that point because appearance is everything, and that is exactly the way. And we had ignorance more than I think intent to do something wrong. But the appearance is that that's what we did, and I'm not even arguing because I'm in charge of the guys who did it, and it's my fault.
Right. So it's hard to reduce the fine, the penalty, when it was a calculated risk you took, and the calculated risk didn't pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Although you didn't know what the extent of the fine would be.
No.
You knew there was going to be one if you got caught. And then the damage, I don't know. I mean, how do you determine that way?
Well, it's hard to know, I guess.
Well, that's going to be a haul road, so
It's going to be a whole.
we're going to have an agreement with Knife River to fix it after you're done anyways.
And that's the other thing too that I want to make sure come here too. That besides even just the fine, it's just to talk about that. We want to make sure that we can do this, and we have another guy who will work with Wayne or Mr. Wayne on putting together an agreement later with the counties and the states and stuff who are going to be involved with that, or the agencies. But like I said, we need to have a good relationship. It's important for us, and that needs to happen.
So will you have Jake evaluate the road before they start
Well,
hauling on it?
I don't know if they're having their own engineers doing it, the state will, or what.
Generally, the state comes out there and they will videotape the roads with them, and we'll see driving through there and see what the conditions stack, and then it's determined what's there, and then at the end of the job, we have to get a sign off from yourself to say that it's in as good a shape or better than it was when we started. And until you sign that, we can't get our finalized. We can't get our jobs finalized.
My question to these guys would have been, could we have KLJ or Jake or somebody be along with when they do that assessment? I don't know if the states, sometimes they just go out and do it themselves, and then there's no opportunity to say, no, the gravel's this thick and not that thick in the beginning.
Yeah, we've actually over in Devil's Lake before. We've on certain state roads when there's been gravel, they've actually cored the road to see how much gravel is actually on there. So they'll have, if you have somebody like a KLJ who has the resources to bring in to core the road and to see what's there, to make sure that at the end it's not been basically dissipated down and the stuff's been pumped up underneath. And if that's happened, then you might need to put on some more gravel. And that's when the state lets these projects in knowing the resources, that's their responsibility to pay for those things and us to, it's at a low cost, but we share our cost in it too.
So wouldn't it be of your benefit to have that study done? Wouldn't it be a benefit of Knife River to pay for the engineering study, so it just not only assure that Griggs County gets back what they had, but that you don't provide something to Griggs County they didn't have?
To pay for, I guess.
For the engineering study
Yeah.
to determine the condition of the road.
I guess we've never, because I think the engineering firms that are out there is Wold Engineering is going to be in one of the counties, or one of the agencies that's on there. No, Wold is actually two different Wold guys, and then it's the state of the Grand Forks DOT, and they're the ones who actually go out there and I think analyze it. I don't know if they actually core it themselves. I'm not sure. I just honestly don't know.
We haven't had that problem for a number of years, but they did at one time. They went out and they cored it every so long, a distance every so often. And then they had it all recorded in a paper. They didn't have video at that time.
Yeah.
And then after the project, they went back out. Only problem was that we had a lot of soft spots, and this was Anderson Western out of Bismarck. So they hauled a bunch of rock in. Okay, now they put in an inch of gravel because that's what they said we had before. Well, 2 years later, all the rocks were coming up because before there was a gravel, maybe it wasn't good gravel underneath there, but it wasn't rock. And now the riprap or the rock stabilization started coming up too. So. But,
generally, the roads that we get on, like I said, by the time that they're done, they're in better shape. Just because there has been a number of trucks on them, so they have to get built up. Because if not, they're going to fall apart. And if they can't hold up to these heavy trucks coming in and out of there, even at 80,000 pounds, they're going to fall apart. They're going to fall apart quick.
And we want, the width of the road.
Yep.
So it's going to be the same when we get done as it is when we start.
And those are some of the things that we can measure too. And so, like I said, I guess that's the two requests I had. Like I said, we wanted to make sure we met you guys, did that, and then also to talk about if there was any chance for anything with that. Like I said, I know Knife River probably, we're a large company, but that's a large, $20,000 is a large amount of money, and we understand. But if there's any relief with that, I can understand that if we ever did something like this again, I would expect you to throw the book at me and tell me to take a leap if I came back in here and asked forgiveness again. But that's, I guess, where I'm at with it.
Okay.
Any questions from Wayne or I or anything?
I don't have any questions. Anybody have any questions for these fellows?
It just speak for themselves.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, is there going to be, is the road going to be repaired before it becomes a haul road, or is that going to just be rolled into the repair afterwards?
What's it look like?
It looks a lot better today than it did. After that process, we had like an inch and a half of rain right before that. We did those first two pieces, so I was out there several days later, and some of it was like pavement. It was hard as a rock. And
Yes, Wayne, in your experience, is that road gonna have to be built up a little bit to maintain itself so they get?
Well, they're gonna have. It's probably gonna have to be some gravel on some of those spots, just like
we plan that.
We might do some of that, but not before. Now they're gonna be active out there all the time now, so. I think you guys are willing to keep it up.
Well, absolutely, we have to. We'll have water trucks available and blades in our pit. And I know that, like I said, I believe the county had to repair it before we even got anything back down. I think you guys did it right away because it was in such bad shape.
Blade was out there for 6 hours there
Yeah.
a couple times. So.
And then when we,
for restitution, was charging for the time of the blade?
6 hours times $75 an hour.
I mean, I don't expect that that's sufficient by any stretch. I'm not even asking that. I know that's not sufficient.
That just bladed the top. They
Yeah.
didn't put the black mud back down into the ground.
After restrictions went off, and just so what we did there last time now, was restrictions went off, and we moved the crusher, the rest of the equipment into the pit, and what we did was we just brought our blade down there with us. So we did that on Tuesday, and then some small stuff came in the next couple days afterwards, and we just left our blade down there until we were done hauling in there basically, and made sure it was in, I don't know, I would assume it's in better condition, if not as good or as it was before, because we never heard any issues. So usually we would hear if there's issues. But
From my standpoint, it really comes down to the motoring public, because people do use that road beside your trucks.
Mhm.
Your truck will be able to navigate much more than a car, so we want to make damn sure that it's passable 24/7.
when our plant comes in there to start hauling out, there will be a blade in that pit 100% of the time. There will always be a blade in there. I mean, that will never leave until our plant leaves. So and we have people on our crews who can run that blade well on every crew, so they don't sit on the road all the time unless if they have to, they have to. Sometimes they do. If it's a really bad road, I mean, there has been times it has to happen that way. And when we go out there, we usually have a water truck in the pit too. And I guess I'm not familiar with this road myself. What we will do on those areas is we try to make sure we're hitting in front of houses quite a bit with water to keep the dust settled in front of if there's any houses there. So that's what we can really do is we'll just hit those home areas more than ever. I mean, we try to hit everything, but where there's houses, we want to hit that as often as possible to make sure we keep that dust settled in front of those houses, because it does kick up everybody, especially if it's a dry time of the year.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you.
All right. Could I check back with Mr. Sheriff folks about if there's any possible in-kind change or anything with the panels, or how do you? Or is it pretty much just set where it's at?
I don't know, do you want to gravel down there or not?
Well, they'll have to put gravel on there, I'm sure.
Yeah,
You know,
well, we had-
spots.
Well, do you want a pile?
Do you want,
Yeah.
do you want $20,000 worth of gravel?
There you go.
That's what another option would be if it's got a value to you. I mean, we would work out with the landlord.
That's what he was asking.
Yeah, if that has a real value to you, I know. And we could work out those terms and see what would be a fair value of that.
The only thing is it gonna be a good road gravel, or is it just gonna be?
We'll make sure that it's
Asphalt.
passing, that it's
I'd be inclined,
legitimate gravel.
I'd
We
be
wouldn't,
inclined to take the money, you can buy whatever kind of gravel you want. Just another thing to verify if we're taking, I mean, we're gonna take Bitcoins too?
No. True.
Well, it's an administrative fine. It's been levied.
Yep.
So unless there's a motion to the contrary, I guess it is what it is.
Okay.
So anybody? No? Okay.
Okay,
So,
well, I appreciate your time,
Thank
you guys,
you.
and we'll try to make sure we do better in the future, and
Thank
hope
you.
we don't have to come back here for this kind of stuff in the future.
All right.
I don't want to, so, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
What's that?
Thanks, Bob.
You got her. Go catch us another one now.
I start with a big fish, hard repeat out.
I was just gonna talk about that County Road 8, if that's possible.
Oh, Wayne has one more road that he wants to talk about. The road between Binford and McHenry.
Binford McHenry, the water the other day was splashing over the top of the pavement. There's a picture there.
By Blacks?
Yep, by Blacks was the worst spot, and then to the east there. We've been hauling rock out there and stuff, trying to prevent too much damage. The one place to the east, it was right under the pavement. It was just getting ready to start breaking off, so we hauled a bunch of rock in there from Gary Delph's. I had Jake look into the possibility of using that oil money for that. but it doesn't sound like unless we put it back to pavement that it's gonna be possibly eligible. It is eligible to use the oil money. We had that as a project.
So what,
earlier.
what DOT said is that, the House Bill 1176 would most likely qualify to do the grade raise there. What he said was if it doesn't get paved and an ER project comes later, the ER project would just pay to put it back to gravel, it wouldn't pay to put it back to pavement again. So that would be the risk. So,
What's it look like from the line into McHenry?
There's quite a bit of, call it freeboard there, you know, it's quite a ways down to the water compared to,
Foster County isn't in trouble yet?
Yeah, because you actually start coming up, don't you actually start coming up a bit? The grade actually starts coming up.
it does, it raises up right past Blacks, it goes up, you know, about 5 feet, so. But it's high on there too, but they still have rocks. This got so high that it was over the top of the riprap that we had in place, so then it started washing away. The embankment was there, which therefore, you know, they're still lucky there was still some fabric up above there that kind of helped save.
No, I looked at it. So, if we don't fix it, we don't have a road at all. And if we do fix it, we can't put it back to pavement. So the question is, do we want a gravel road or do we want no road? Because we don't have the money, to do to put it back to pavement now.
Only other option would be is if we had money to come up with the estimate was $1 million, but you know, we don't know. It could be less than that. We'd have to come with that extra 200,000 out of our own pocket.
For the pavement.
Yeah, or to do the project. Say we had it bid and it came in at 800,000 or 600,000 instead of $1 million.
With
If
pavement?
600,000, then, you know, yeah, not every contractor can do paving, but they would have to subcontract that paving.
I don't, the $1 million is with pavement?
Yeah, that's what remember last year, that was a bid.
Riprap and raised up.
It's just that was from quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
From when Jenny was coming up here, and I know that was done. I mean, there was no preliminary engineering study done or anything. It was a rough estimate. So,
is there any indication that the next county is going to pave theirs? So their pavement's in really bad shape from there on out. Is there any indication they're going to pave their portion?
I've been talking to Nate. I don't know if they're going to come this far, get enough money to do it. I think they're going to do McHenry and going west.
Right.
But as far as repaving that, I don't know if it's not on for this year, I don't think.
Okay, so the next question is, if we just turn that short portion of it into gravel, is that the only portion that isn't, that we couldn't use the future funds on then? If we left the rest of it pavement?
yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so then we're just talking half mile?
The two sections? I had it measured at one time, it was like 7/10,
Yeah.
or something.
So that's all it's at risk of not getting put back to pavement by if we went and used the state money to fix this, correct?
It's 7/10 of a mile?
I think so. I think the one section was like 3/10 and the other was like 2/10, 2,500 feet.
I can ask that question to make sure, but I
You
mean,
know, because
logically, that
then you're not
to
at
me,
risk,
that
you know, because the whole paving project would be from there to Binford and you know, not risking a whole lot if you're not risking the whole thing and just that little bit that's gravel there.
See, this year there is no ER
Right.
damage because there's no
Disaster.
yeah.
Right.
I think there is a couple counties that are requesting it, but they haven't been approved yet. I think it's Wells County and up in there. Or no, maybe it was farther west. They had a lot of snow runoff and whatever, and they had a bunch of roads underwater. They requested a disaster, but you have to be within that basin, I think, too, of that disaster. Like we were in the Devil's Lake Basin prior, so we got the Irish Road raised and cut across to McHenry, we raised.
Yeah, Wells County really got snow last winter.
But something just keep work on, and we're gonna still haul some rocks out there ourselves. It just takes some fuel and some time, and we can get rocks yet from Gary Delps, which isn't too far away, just to try to prevent some of the splashing there.
Okay.
And next meeting, I'm gonna be in Norway, so I guess I probably won't make it.
Gonna Skype then?
Yeah. Leaving on the 30th of May and
Okay.
come back the 19th.
So you'll be on the, we'll put you on screen.
Yeah.
You got one of those big hats on.
Well, that's a loot to Fisk.
Well, we just don't eat lose, it's
Yeah,
not real ones.
We don't have a projector.
Huh?
We don't have a projector.
Why?
One was never purchased.
Oh, cool. Must not need one.
So I
I
guess
know
that's
that was what you're looking for.
all we have, I guess, so.
And then the
I can
next,
check some more.
the next meeting, we'll have the final certifications for those 4 projects to DOT. Basically, the KLJ billing cycle was behind, so those bills weren't out yet, so I couldn't put the final certs together. I'll probably just email those to Sam, it's just like a reimbursement request,
Okay.
and then you guys can sign them, send them in, and those projects are
The
done.
construction, did we say that?
Yep,
The construction meeting this week? Next week?
next week, for that Tom Gilbertson.
Tom Gilbertson.
So, unless something comes up, I probably won't plan on coming first week in June.
One more thing, if you see that somebody's working on the Willow Road down by the Mac Road, we're gonna move the road over.
What?
We're gonna move the road over the intersection, it comes up like this.
You're gonna move it to the south.
We're gonna move it so that they line up
To the
instead
south.
of, we're gonna move if you're coming from the west, we're gonna move it to the north, so it lines up, because where that utility, or that
Mhm.
power
Substation.
station, substation is there, it just seems like it's a little off to the north, and nothing has happened as far as an accident, but
So you're gonna move the road itself.
we're gonna move the road to the north, or the west side of the intersection.
I'll get lined up on that tonight when I go home.
Are there easements on it that are taken care of? Wayne?
Pardon?
Are there easements on that taken care of so we can move it?
We're not gonna do any new easements, we're not gonna be moving it off the original plane of the road, other than moving it over 4 feet. So it'll be in the same 33 feet or whatever.
Okay.
I think, and originally, I think the road swung out for that Hillison place there,
Mhm.
there's some big trees there and stuff.
So even with the stop sign there, we have to make sure that no one, I mean, you gotta stop anyway. Why don't we-
They're yield signs.
Coming on to number 1, is that a stop sign?
Well, this is up on 2 and,
I
2 and 15.
Okay.
To yield. But we're gonna gravel it this summer, so, I've looked at that for the last 20 years, and
You're talking right north of Danny Odegaard's or what?
yes,
Yeah.
right at that intersection. Next
Yeah,
time I go by,
yeah.
take a look at
Yeah,
it.
no, that one.
I drive by it twice a day.
Yeah, but you just, you're busy on your phone. No.
Okay.
It's not gonna be no big deal, it's just gonna be the maintainer, and we have to extend the culvert, and we got a piece, so we cut off another one, and just move it over. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, you too, Jake.
See you, Jake.
See you later. Water board. Don't have no water board.
I asked Bob to have the water board members to come today, and evidently they weren't interested.
They sent Jamie.
No, not necessarily, but Tom Moore did email me some things to discuss with you guys. I guess I did do a little research and I talked about it. As far as, it's kind of interesting. I think the water board is probably the only board in the county where you guys can't serve on it as commissioners.
That's right.
But I guess a couple things that I researched and found is that ultimately every expenditure through the water board has to go through the water board. But you do have, they're appointed by you guys, so you do have the supervision. A couple things Tom Moore talked about yesterday, I guess, was the fact that they were working on that stuff, and he thought it'd be a good idea to have all those guys continue working on that stuff. He suggested not taking the checkbook until after the first of the year and let them go through the rest of the year with it. I guess I'm here to advise you. I'm not the water board's attorney, so I guess you guys will have to make your decision. Like I said, they're the only 5 that can. You guys can't serve as a water board. Those guys do know what's going on. I don't know. I don't know if you'll get someone to serve on the water board. That's one thing I thought about. Well, ultimately, it's up to you guys.
Let me read you 61, 16.1-25, and maybe taking the checkbook was the wrong terminology, but we certainly have the right to oversight. And it says, in June and December of each year, and otherwise as required by the county commission appointing the managers of the district treasurer shall report to the Water Resources Board in writing the amount of money in the treasury, the receipts, if any, in the preceding period, and the amount and items of expenditure during the period. The report shall be verified and filed with the secretary of the district. A verified copy of the report shall also be filed in the office of the county auditor of each county in which the district lies and shall be open to public inspection. So we could very well require on a monthly basis they supply us with all their expenditures and the total financial status of the water board, which would give us the oversight.
Right, and I don't think that I don't think that they would oppose that.
Okay, so then if by looking at their records, and it's fairly evident that they haven't provided us with a budget at the time of budgeting, and that there's been money spent outside now of any contract that they had with the engineers, the fact that we have to step in and do something about this, because it goes on to say, whenever all special assessments collected for a project are insufficient to pay for the special assessment, warrants issued against such project coming due within the 13 months with interest, and the Board of County Commissioners of each of the counties within the district shall advance to the district project warrant fund an amount sufficient to pay the deficiency.
What section are you reading from again?
16.1-25. That is just farther on. So
I think that there's a difference between that though, and if you look at 61 chapter 6121, that talks about the landowner petition drains that are started. And this is 6116.1. Those are the drains that are started by the boards themselves. So I think there's probably a difference between that the board started drain and the petition drain by the landowner, and that's what those legal drains are that are outside the budget as well.
Right, and that's what this is talking about. These are special assessment warrants that should have been issued against those special assessment warrants. And then if that happened and they were deficient, so the county would have had to step in with taxpayer dollars in order to make them flush again. That never happened. The water board did that on their own. They used taxpayer dollars in order to.
I understand that, John. Right. I think you're still talking about the wrong drains. 6116.1 drains are started by the water board. 6121 are the petition drains, the way I understand it.
This doesn't even specify the drains. This is the financial reporting responsibilities of the water board. This doesn't specify which drains. It's all drains. See, this is talking about the warrants that would have been issued for those drains or any other drains. The warrants weren't issued. What they did was they advanced the money rather than issuing the warrants, which they didn't have the right to do. That was those were general tax dollars that they put towards a special assessment drain. nevertheless, if they don't want us looking over their shoulder for the money that we are supposed to be accountable for, why can't they come and tell us a reason why we shouldn't have the right to supervise the money they spend?
I think there is a misunderstanding between Water Board too between this board and Water Board about, I think they literally thought that the checkbook was gonna be taken and they had no authority to make any payments. I think they took the literal thought that you wanted to take the checkbook.
Well, we have the right to disallow a payment if they're making a payment that was never budgeted. They can't just go spend money that was outside of their budget, which they didn't have one.
I'm not sure that you do, John, because under the code, they're the only ones that can. They're the ones that the only ones under.
Jamie, they serve at the pleasure of the county commission. What happens if they're doing something that is against the wishes of the county commission, which is our duty to protect the taxpayer? What happens? We're ultimately responsible for the dollars they're spending. If they're spending dollars outside, and that's why they serve at the pleasure of the county commission. If they're doing something that is contrary to what the county commission deems as beneficial to the citizens, then they're removed. That stops the process. That's not the outcome we want. But if they won't even come to us and talk with us, we requested now twice the chairman be here, and he won't come and even talk to us. What are we supposed to imply from that?
I'm not sure.
Well,
I mean, they don't.
I understand what.
They don't present a budget for us to approve or disapprove.
Right.
And they still take the 4 mills and they go spend it however they feel like spending it. And nobody watches over. Nobody knows anything about it. They're not providing any records. There's nothing available to the public. It's not right.
No, I understand that, and that's
The rest of the county is an open book to the public.
right. I understand that, and I'm not saying that wasn't their error. That is their error, and that's something that needs to be should have been corrected eons ago.
And they won't even come and tell us what they want to do to correct it. What are we to do?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. I mean, it's
No,
pretty simple.
I understand.
so faced with this determination, and what's your recommendation? Do we let them keep spending money that is being spent onto a project that is a special assessment and is not benefiting the taxpayers who are financing it? Or do we do something about it?
I need some more time to research what you can do and what can be done. Sixty-one 1608 calls for the ability to remove.
Oh,
Procedure for
there's-
removal.
Yep, I know, but I mean, that isn't the preferred outcome. The preferred outcome would be to somehow work with the board to
Right.
fix the problem they have. They need to issue warrants for the monies that are owed to the project by private individuals. They need to issue warrants to the county to pay the county back for the money that's in those projects. But if they won't even come and address those issues, what are we to do?
I guess your only choice may be to have the hearing for removal.
I mean, Dale has made the best point possible. If if there's a fix to this, come and tell us what the fix is. If it's just because their feelings are hurt because we want to do our duty and due diligence and make sure the funds are being spent correctly, then that implies there's something wrong in the whole system. Something stinks in the whole system then.
Well, and I understand what you're saying.
So I'm looking at this budget. This is something that they just stuck together now?
Yeah, that's never been presented before.
Right. So it's an $83,000 budget. But 23,000 into TB04, Karnick drain 7,000. Why would the general mill levy be going into these?
It wouldn't.
It can't.
It could. It could, but it would never, in my estimation, it would never survive the budget scrutiny of the county commission. If they put that forward and were asking for this budget, we would deny, I would assume, taking public money into a private project. That's an after effect. That we were promised, and we are a little bit at fault here. We were promised a budget. We were given a partial budget, and we gave them the money. We levied the money.
I know. I'm just saying, this out of this budget, it looks to me like 25,000 or so of it is legitimate water board and stuff.
Yeah.
The rest of it should come from the benefactors of all these legal drains.
That's correct.
So we should have levied 1.25 mils or something instead of 4.
Well, actually, as it turns out now, we shouldn't have levied anything because
I know they had money in the
unbeknownst to
checkbook.
us, they had money in the checkbook and they had money in these drains.
Right.
So there was money there to operate.
Right. No, I understand.
Again, we're not trying to punish somebody. We're trying to fix this mistake, and if without the help of the water board to fix the mistake, what do you do?
I understand that. I understand that.
Yeah. And I would say
They have approximately $258,000 in their account,
counting what has to be paid back.
counting what's been borrowed to the drains
Right.
and what they have on their balance.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, of course I should preface this all the time. My mom works for the water board.
Yep.
That plays nothing in what I have to say, as you guys know that.
No.
But I need to tell you guys that just.
But to let Tom Moe have any say in this is really way out of bounds. He's directly benefited by the water board.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know why do they have him at every meeting?
I don't know. And if what's happened to water board comes with his blessing,
He should go too.
yeah, well, I will have to. I mean, we got to fix this. So we're looking to you. How do we fix this? How do we keep them from spending more money? The last meeting we're at, we told them to not expend any more funds towards Renaissance Engineering because they're way over their spoken contract. And guess what happened? They just keep writing them checks.
Give me some, and I should have probably had this done today. Give me some research and give me some time to research and find the remedies. What needs to be done.
I mean, I thought the remedy was come and sit down and talk with them and say, guys, let's fix this somehow. But evidently not. What's your take on it, Dale? You sit in their meetings all the time?
Their drains, they're spending outside of how we feel they should, but their drains, if they quit spending, then all that money's at risk. You know, if they don't complete the project, they're kind of in a catch-22. They're damned if they do and damned if they don't.
Not if they did a better job of planning up front.
Well, that's
that's water over the dam, I
yeah,
suppose.
it's beyond
We're
beyond the
We're almost in a
plan.
courthouse situation right now where that money is there and we're like you said before, we're
It
pregnant.
looks more like a salvage job now.
Yeah, you're into a hole now.
Yeah, you're in deep enough for it.
So okay, on the Karnick or CBO4, is that the Karnick?
TBO4, yeah.
TBO4. So now that KLJ has gotten involved, are we confident enough that they're gonna make this thing happen, that we just let it happen and then try to pick the pieces up with the landowners? And then, as I understand it, KLJ is only gonna do the mitigation study, and nobody's done the assessment study yet. Who's gonna do that part of it?
They
That was
did the
done.
assessment themselves.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
They're
Is that
high-
on this one, or is that the old one that they did the assessment on?
They used the existing assessment from the old drain and added new parcels for the new portion
and new cost.
and new cost.
So it probably wasn't too difficult to do that.
No, if you look at the map, they added, I don't know how many acres that
Okay.
are benefited by the new
Okay.
drain. Because they asked Lauren to do it.
And he won't do it.
He won't do it because he was kind of agitated by some of the petitioners were asking him too many questions, it looked like, and he was angry, and he just said, I won't do it. And they should have fired him at that point, but it didn't happen.
So, there's no doubt it has to be finished, there's too much money been put into this thing. But 6 years of incompetence definitely deserves someone looking over his shoulder to make sure it gets finished correctly.
I don't disagree with you.
So if they're not willing to even acknowledge that there's a problem and that there needs to be a fix to that problem, they want to do the status quo, then what are we to do? The project isn't going to fail forever if it stops. The work that's been done by the engineer better be documented because he charged it for it. If it's not documented, then they
We
have
should
to
own it now.
be reimbursed for it.
We should own that work because we bought it.
Right.
Yep.
The permitting, same thing. It isn't, yes, we might give it to you, no, we won't give it to you. As he said, it's, what do you need to get it done? The landowners that are out the money, that have put money up for this, were supposed to be issued warrants, and they were supposed to be payable within 3 years. That was never done. So the landowners, and there's $90,000 accumulated money out between 4 people, are hanging out there.
They're in the lurch right now.
With no way of recovering that money because they haven't followed through. The county taxpayers, the general taxpayers, are in the rears on this project and another project to the tune of, what, 110,000 or more than that.
The Silver Creek and TDO4 is combined about 82.
And yeah, and then the ones up north, yeah.
The others are all solid.
Okay. So those when that was, if that was done, that should have been done with a warrant also, where those drains would pay back the general treasury of the water board. That was never done. So all this money is hanging out there and then being spent without any contracts in place, no guarantee of the work that's done.
What should have happened in order to start paying those warrants back, what should have happened is after the petitioner's petition passed, that should have been started. They should have started taxing that immediately.
Correct. But none of those responsibilities fall anywhere than right in the shoulders of the water board.
Well, their attorney advised, they ask him every move they make and they go by what he says.
Yep.
They're not winging it.
Mm.
You know, they think they're.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, no, he's there and he's our legal counsel and.
Okay, so now we're faced. Very good. Now we're faced with the situation where they are listening to their legal counsel and going about things that are not done correctly. How do you fix that? We can't. You said we can't control the spending, so we can't go in and fire their legal counsel. The only way to fix it is to cut off the head of the snake, or work with them. If they're taking bad advice and they're not willing to take advice, if they're taking bad advice, what do you do?
Well, I understand.
We did what we tried. Come and sit down with us. Let's fix this, guys. No, we find it offensive that you question how we're doing things. We're not coming.
that seemed to be the tone. They were offended that they needed oversight.
Well, I don't even think that they considered it. I think that they literally thought that they had to turn over their check links to you guys, and that they were.
It will come to that.
What I tried to get across to them would be like social services is handled. You're a board, you're gonna approve all your expenditures, just like the social services board would. And then the auditor's gonna issue your checks. And if there's something that's questionable, somebody's gonna have to explain.
I mean,
what's
every
going on.
expenditure that we
Yeah.
approve is in the paper every week.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be.
But
It's
Jamie-
not
Yeah.
their
What?
money.
The goal of us being in charge of the checkbook is totally achievable. All we have to do is appoint members to the board that are willing to go by that recommendation. So it's achievable, and that's why they work at the pleasure of the county commission. So if this water board won't allow it, then the new water board that we appoint probably will. It'd be easier if this water board would allow it.
I understand what you're saying, and I know the process.
And they're working hard on their projects. They're trying to do the right thing. It just isn't happening all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if spending $140,000 for engineering services that were originally supposed to be $30,000 is the right thing.
No.
Without a contract and with no end in sight and with no guarantee, I don't think that's the right thing.
No scope, no plan.
And I know the little old ladies in Binford that I represent wouldn't like their money being squandered on the project they don't have any benefit from, nor running over budget like that.
But it's like any entity, if it's never been run properly, they don't know any different. You know, really, if you've never been taught to do it right,
There's one principle that you have to remember in government: other people's money.
yeah, well, yeah.
that's the final. If you wouldn't do it yourself, why would you do it with other people's money?
So Jamie's gonna do some more research on that, is that correct? And then we're
Yeah,
gonna take
I'll do
it,
some more research on it, find out other than removal, what other avenues or remedies you have.
I think we need to then have you rescind your motion, because the motion is to have the water board's checkbook to the county treasury by June 1st, and the next meeting is June 9th.
We don't have any, according to Jamie, we don't have a way to accomplish that, and until we accomplish it, we didn't violate anything.
Okay.
Right?
I mean, we don't have the ability to do it, do we?
Evidently not. Not in one step.
Well, not yet, not in certain terms of just,
Not
Required.
give it to me, or
yeah.
there's no penalty immediate for not giving it.
Right.
I mean, hopefully Jamie will go to the water board and say, you guys, you gotta come here, we gotta negotiate. We gotta sit down and this gotta get fixed.
Well, do you want, I can go sit down with all the water board members, including Tom Moe, Wednesday or prior to that, and say, hey, get over here. It's not the literal, I'm gonna take your checkbook situation, but we need to set some ground rules here and get things taken care of.
Okay.
I'm not willing to give them financial control. They've proven they can't have that.
Well, we can't even talk about it
Nope.
unless they're here, so
Nope.
get them here.
They didn't come here.
I called Connie about that monument out there because I knew she'd been the treasurer for a long time. So she called Jan, Stefan. I lived here in 1989, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't buying the paper, so I don't have a copy of it. But again, should I just visit with those Legion guys and see what?
Yeah.
I don't know if they know what they're looking at. Do we want to fix that thing, or? I called, and we don't have to do anything today. I called Ryan Iverson and asked him about those marble letters.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he has a guy from Castleton come up and do that type of work, like on existing headstones, like a lot of people put both
Yep.
mom and dad on there or whatever, and one of them goes first. And the date of death is always blank on the one side, of course. And this guy from Castleton comes up and engraves the rest, and then does that background lettering or whatever. So I think he's going to take a look at it the next time he comes and to see what I think we should fix it before we start putting flagpoles up. I mean, you can't even read it. Or somebody should fix it. Okay. Employee benefits.
I think we missed.
Yeah, you're missing a bunch of stuff, like the
Huh?
tax director.
Budget.
Oh.
County CD.
Sorry,
That's okay.
I was just going by the pages. Tax director.
We must have covered that.
I think that was covered, yeah.
Okay. Budget.
This pertains to the $23,000 that was in the senior citizens budget carried over from last year.
Okay.
I went to the senior citizens meeting yesterday. I think what happened here is there was usually some money paid to the state in December. It wasn't. It was paid in January. The senior citizens were in the habit of just coming in and writing a voucher and taking money out of the account. They would leave money in to cover this thing, and then Samantha would pay those for the state when they came and wanted money. So
Yeah.
they weren't aware, the senior
It's-
citizens weren't aware of the balance in there. So what happens is they paid it now, but this will, if we don't get that money back to them or leave it there, they will end up short at the end of the year. So it really wasn't a budget overrun. It was a
Timing issue.
timing issue. So there's what, $59,000 total?
60
60?
60,000 something.
I think we should start treating them like we treat the rest of the entities. I think we should write them a check for the cash, for the tax dollars that come in, when they come in. I think we should send a 60 to them and let them then be in charge of all their finances. That's the director of the state senior citizens was there, and she said that's the way the other senior citizens groups do it around the state.
Well, the other counties do it. They levy just like they do to the cities.
Yep,
Anything that comes in goes right back.
Goes
out.
right back to them.
How about the fair board? Or
The fair board's the same way. So then, if we do this, then I would ask that we.
how come it was done differently than everybody else?
They didn't know.
No, but the auditor must have known.
I don't know.
Huh.
But they were very confused about how this process works, and they'll be in a lot better condition now when they can see what they have, so they can allocate it accordingly. So I would make a motion that we send the balance in the senior citizens account to the senior citizens, and then on a monthly basis. Is it a monthly basis you distribute funds?
Mm-hmm.
On a monthly basis, we make automatic deposits into their account.
Fair board too.
I can't speak for that. I would say that would probably be included. I would say that would probably work out better than would be on par with the way we do everything else.
Is that the only two agencies, the fair board and the senior citizens, that are treated that way?
Yep.
Okay.
I think the fair board waits like a month before the fair, don't they, and come get their check and
Well, they just got it last month, I think. So it's
it's like
something.
they get it a few months before the fair when
Yeah.
the expenses start.
I'll include the fair board in the motion then.
I don't remember what you said.
Okay.
Been moved by John that the funds levied for the Fair Board and the senior citizens be distributed at the time of collection as they are with the rest of the levy recipients,
Yeah, and the current balances be forwarded also.
and that the current balances be forwarded to those respectively. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carried. County CD.
Well, I accomplished that at the same meeting because one of the people involved with the CD,
Pause or Donna?
Donna, was happened to be at the meeting. So, if you guys remember, the county CD was a CD that was entrusted to the county as a goodwill gesture for taking some land out off the tax base. What happened was there was some land that was sold to for federal
Waterfall resting area or
production
something,
area.
yeah.
And the person that sold the land felt bad that he was taking money out of the county tax base, so he put a $10,000 CD with the county and let the county have the interest from that CD in perpetuity for the money that was lost to taxes. A very noble gesture. But I think those people should probably be entitled to having the original $10,000 back, as the county can't use it anyway. It just sits there, and the more than paid back whatever that tax loss was going to be. So I did get a chance to talk to Donna, and she knew about it, and she just was very optimistic and pleased that it was a possibility that could be returned.
Did she know about it?
She knew that it had happened. She doesn't know what the status of it was.
So would the treasurer make the check to Donna, and then Donna would distribute it to Haas?
No, I think we'd have to get ownership. We'd have to determine who it's going to go to, Donna, and I think we would just have to relinquish ownership of the CD, wouldn't we? Because it's currently in midterm on the CD. We'd just turn over ownership of the CD to them.
To Donna and Paz
Or
jointly?
whoever, yeah.
I did a little research too,
Mm-hmm.
and John had a will, and it appears that any of the residue of his estate actually is supposed to be put in a trust for Donna. I don't know if that I didn't get a chance to see if that trust is still there, but it's.
But John Jr. didn't put that CD in there. It was
Senior
John
did.
Senior. You're talking about Donna's husband.
Right.
This is
Oh, it's John Senior.
This is John's father
Okay.
that bought the CD, and John and August were brothers,
Okay.
and Donna and Paz are their wives that are still
Right,
survivors.
right. I didn't realize it was John Senior.
So I
believe
think,
it is. I believe it was John Senior.
how long has it been?
A long.
What time was it, when was it split? I thought it was.
In the 80s, early 80s.
I think it's
thought.
probably John Junior.
I don't know. Well, we can find that out. Nevertheless,
Yeah, whatever.
The information that Connie gave me was CD of $12,000 matured on February 13th each year, earns $228 on interest each year. There will be a fee for cashing it early, but I don't know what that would be, and it probably depends on when they cash it in.
What's the name on the CD?
Griggs County, I think.
Well, there's a contract.
Generally 3 months interest.
yeah, but you wouldn't catch it. You just change ownership on it. Correct?
Yeah, they can decide to cash it out. We don't have to make that
We
call.
would just give them ownership on it, make it legal. Right. Yep. So, should we instruct Jamie to pursue and see which way that's where it's supposed to go?
I think it's
You think it's John?
I think it's
Jr.?
Donna's husband, John.
Okay, well, I talked to Donna. Do you want me to call Donna and ask her?
I can
how it
call
went, or-
Donna.
Yeah,
I have no problem with that. I think it's, I think it should be Donna's. I'm not 100% sure,
Okay.
but I actually had talked to my dad about this last night too.
Okay.
To find out, we have land right up there, and I think it's John's.
Junior.
Junior.
Okay.
Well, there's an easy way to find out.
Right.
Ask the recorder.
Well, and I have the document right here, but it doesn't say Junior. It just says John Evers.
Oh, you mean when it changed hands from them to the state or to the federal? Okay.
Well, if it was,
Or the tax agreement. The signatures are the same on his will as they are. I've got a copy of his will, and the signatures are the same, but that's the only thing I can go by right now.
what are you looking at, deed?
At the tax lien.
No, but you could look at the deed when the property changed
Right.
hands to the,
That's
to the
what I'm
federal
talking
government,
Okay.
and then it would show the correct ownership.
And if you look at the deed, when it went from the Game and Fish or whatever, or to the Game and Fish,
Right.
if that doesn't have the right name on it, then go to the deed prior to that, and if it's in 1932, it's John Senior.
Then it's just a matter of transferring the ownership of the CD. We don't write a check or anything, we just sign the paperwork.
We just hand it over, they can make a call.
Yep, okay.
Okay. Now can we talk about employee benefits?
Yes, please.
Heck yeah.
I did some research. Well, I had a gentleman do some research for the county on what we can do about dental and vision rates for the employees, because I have gotten complaint after complaint that dental insurance is way too high.
This is, the employees pay for this?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And so this gentleman had come back and had found these other rates for us, which are significantly lower. I am just asking for your blessing to switch vendors or add these vendors to, offer them to the employees.
So do you have a little employee vote then, or how do you make that call?
Well, it would just be that you guys would, give me the blessing to offer them to the employees, and then I would need, this gentleman said that he would need to have a meeting with all of us and then see how many actually qualify for it, and then if we meet the 60% and do it that way.
Sure. Since you're paying for it, not everybody has to take it, sure.
Yep.
Yep, there's no cost to the county, is there?
No.
I don't know that you need our blessing to do that, do you?
I was told that I needed, when Cindy was here, she would always ask about this stuff, so that's kind of why I'm asking. When the vendor went from emeritus or colonial to emeritus, she had to come to you guys, so.
I'm not sure if it's required or not either. It might have been just out of habit that Cindy did it. But I guess there's nothing, we're not taking too much risk approving a vendor we've never heard of.
Right.
No, we're not paying for it, so the employees are taking the risk.
Yeah.
Motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'll make the motion if the employees want to explore their opportunities in dental and vision, that's fine.
Been moved by John to, the employee group to explore options with their vision and dental insurance. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Old courthouse, new courthouse.
Sorry, I forgot to take off parking on there. I'm sorry, that doesn't need to be on there.
Well, we could talk about parking. I got a phone call at work yesterday morning when I was in Macville. So, Brock and the boys didn't partition off that parking lot the other night before last when they finished pouring it at 6 o'clock, whatever time it was. And somebody drove in there the next morning.
Oh, what did it do?
I didn't look.
It didn't do much. It just made a little mark, and I did talk to Brock Brand, and he said that it just put a little bit of stress on the concrete, but it looks fine. So
It'll be all right. But that concrete was green as grass that morning because it was cool that night. You know when it was cool when they poured it? So I'm glad they didn't sink into
So
it.
you couldn't see that before you drove on it?
what? I had a mini heart attack when I watched her pull up, but she didn't sink, so I was like, well, okay, I guess that's fine.
'Cause I thought I drove by there that night. I thought there was that piece of tape was there that night.
Nope, there was nothing there that night.
You must have had the road guys come and do that. Huh?
Yep.
Oh,
Quick thing.
Yep. Matt came out and he,
put that tape.
yep, he
I
got
called
that.
Sam. I said, Sam, somebody's got to rope that off. So, anything else on new courthouse, old courthouse? We're gonna have to let bids on. Go ahead.
What did Schultz finish the heating and cooling?
I thought I saw him working behind the other day when I came in, but
I don't. I've talked to most of the departments, and it appears everybody's got cooling. I don't know. I think they're done.
it was, oh,
He was.
it might have even been last week.
I asked him
Remember
to
when I came into
give
town?
everybody a little how-to on these thermostats. Did he do that or not so
No.
much?
Mhm.
Are they simple? I haven't looked.
Yeah,
Okay,
I already played around with it. It's
not a big
It's
deal.
up and down and heat and cool.
menu,
Yeah.
it's hot, cool, off, up and down button.
Yeah.
Okay. I suppose we'll have to let bids on the landscaping portion, or what are we gonna do with that?
We talked one time that the county crew could do some of that leveling, but is there actually grass? Well, it's in Brock's contract to do the rock along the courthouse.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Was there anything in their contract to do the concrete in the back by the emergency and employee doors?
No,
No.
there's nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, there should be some concrete back there.
Yeah. Just the
No, I haven't
those two
even
doors.
looked back there.
This is where for the judge, you mean?
Well, that's the employee door that we all use.
Okay.
Employees
And
are
then-
parking in the asphalt parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we use that back door. We're supposed to be using that back door. Once we get more keys, everybody
Oh,
should be
okay.
using that back door.
Yeah, I thought there was concrete up to the employee door.
Just a little slab, but there's not like a sidewalk or anything to get up there.
Okay.
But it's in Brock Bren's contract to do the rock, like by
Yeah.
my window and stuff
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah, the fabric and the rock.
Between the
Okay.
flagpoles and in there.
Okay.
That's rock, right?
Mhm.
Are we able to amend his bid? I mean, we're able to amend his contract? To add,
I suppose we could either.
can we do a change order
We could, I suppose. Maybe it's simpler just to give them a new contract
for the little bit?
that's under 25,000 or whatever it is. But
Right.
either way, I'm sure we could do it.
A little bit of side concrete that needs to be done out back here. Do we have to bid that, or can we just give them a change order to do it?
I think we probably should be able to do a change order.
It's not gonna be a big deal.
No. Is he done? No, he's not done yet, because he's gotta come back and do
Rock.
Rock.
That's too bad we didn't get that. Oh well. Okay. Are you gonna call him?
Okay.
Anything else? New courthouse, old courthouse? Is there anything else interior wise that needs to be done? Did you ever get that little short door in your office, Kelly? Is that still unfinished?
Nope, it's finished.
Oh.
Yeah, Brian found all the parts to it and
Oh.
created a top for it, so
Excellent.
it's good to go.
He found all the keys got.
There wasn't a
straightened
key
out?
for that, but I don't know about other keys that you're
Keys
looking
are
for.
straightened out. We are getting more of the front door key and the back door keys, and those should be coming within like the next week or two. we're hoping.
Either straightened out or still missing.
No, they're all here.
We even found that master.
Nope,
No,
just
yeah,
that one
okay.
master is still missing. Yep, that one that we've always been missing. Yep, that's still gone. But other than that, everything's.
I haven't seen anybody wandering around in here at night, so.
And we did get a door handle for the social services, and Travis has put that on, and so he's got that. And then I put him in contact with Eric from Central Door, because I guess Sia's door is not working too, so we're gonna try and get another one for that too.
Okay.
See, that front door doesn't close all the time. We've had a few issues with that where they've come in the morning and the last person that left didn't shut that door all the way. So the door's been open all night. Somebody said they drove by once and the door was wide open at night once. The wind
Wow.
had caught it and swung it open, so.
Oh, wow.
I talked to Brian about it and he said that he was thinking maybe he could take the seal off, but I mean, people that install the door he figured it's probably.
Well, yeah, I don't want to take the weather seal off.
Right. Well, he said it was really thick. I don't know if that was hindering it from closing or not, but.
It's got a closer on it.
There must be some adjustment on it.
Yeah, there must be some adjustment on tension on
Some
the
more
closer.
tension on it. I don't know.
I know when I've had to lock the doors the last few days or whatever, I'd have to kick it open and then close it that way, and then it'll close. But
Yep.
Is that just a hex key that locks that one?
I got the deed, it's John and, it says right on the deed, John and Donna.
Okay, well, that makes it simple then. So
I'll get in touch with Donna and see that trust is still set up.
by accident, I talked to the right person there.
I thought it was the generation before
I
that.
did too.
I was pretty sure it was.
Okay.
Okay. Future business?
Well, when's the county board of equalization?
that's the next meeting,
June 9th.
9th. Yep.
That's at 6 o'clock in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is it?
Oh no, I have it for 2. Is it supposed to be at 6?
No, I think we've done it in the past.
Oh, we do it at 2 o'clock. Oh, I thought we.
I think it's the budget hearing that's got to be at 6.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds right.
Is that right, Linda?
Yeah, the budget hearing has to be held after 6 PM if you have that increase. If you're not proposing an increase, it can be held at any time.
Anytime.
Oh, okay.
But if you have to provide that notice that you are going above the zero growth, then the hearing has to be held after 6 PM, or beginning at 6 PM or later.
Oh, okay, because we've always done it at 6,
Yeah.
even without the increase.
Yeah,
So
I think
guess-
a lot of counties just choose to select 6 o'clock because you
Yeah.
don't know the results of your calculations, so
Oh.
it's better to just schedule your meeting at 6 and then go from there. I know a lot of counties have done that because the calculations might not provide you enough time to pick a good date for your meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. And we haven't, I mean,
No.
we don't know anybody that's contesting from an equalization standpoint anyway.
I don't think, from the results of the township equalization meetings, I don't think there was anybody that contested anything.
Or the cities either.
Or the city, so I don't, if someone came, it wouldn't be a valid complaint, not that you couldn't hear it, I think, but I don't think it might not be valid.
Okay. Any other future business?
Maybe adjourn.
Been moved by Sean that we adjourn. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned at 3:55 PM. Next regular meeting will be June 9th at 1 PM.